Go ahead.
No, we'll let him get settled here. He's better at this than I am, so.
Oh, yes. You got some chops, baby.
Apologize.
No, not a problem. All we've done is
Dock your pay,
create the
Frank.
agenda and set that off for a month at their request, so we're right to here.
For O'Neill at Stanton Lane.
Yep.
On January 13th, 2016, during the 6:15 meeting at the Town Hall, the Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Stephen and Kaylee O'Neill for a determination, of applicability to Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands Bylaws to nourish an existing eroded cobble dune on property located at 14 Stanton Lane, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Good evening. Tim,
Good evening.
good to see you.
Hi, Jim.
Well, I have some pictures that I want to put up in the easel.
Sure.
But for the record, my name is Jim O'Connell. I'm a coastal geologist with Coastal Advisory Services. I was retained by Stephen and Kelly O'Neill, the owners of 14 Stanton Lane, to design and request authorization to do dune restoration, cobble nourishment at their property at 14 Stanton Lane. And some photographs of that night.
The stone.
Mr. and Mrs. Stanton, Stephen Kelly.
Oh, hi.
Here.
Great.
Jim.
Actually, you know what, Jim? If you want to put it like right over in this corner, and then I think Lisa can see enough and the audience can see it.
Sure. Come on, you should know this stuff. I've been out there a lot of times. Actually, if we stick it here, you can just do it at an angle. Yeah. Doing it like that. Yeah, doing it like that. Stay out of jail.
They just redid this.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Can you see all this? You all set? Okay. So the project is basically dune restoration, cobble nourishment at 14 Stanton Lane. In the RDA request that I submitted to the commission, I did include several photographs. Basically what I'm doing is I'm showing you those photographs that are with the RDA. But here's Stanton Lane here. You can see, from the waves in the picture here that it's a pretty vulnerable coastal area. This is the O'Neill's property here. This is number 14. They also own the lot to the south, number 12. And the lot to the north of them is a vacant, unnumbered lot. So you can see there's a lot of vacant space on either side of the house. The inside of the house here. This is the dwelling. This is the dwelling here at 14 Stanton Lane. You can see the houses are file supported as all the houses are along Stanton Lane here. At the present time, the house is compliant with the National Flood Insurance Program requirements. The lowest horizontal structural member is 19.8 feet. NAVD 88, and that's based on an elevation certificate that was done in July 2014 by Morse Engineering. The base flood elevation is 16 feet, V16, velocity zone 16 feet. So it's compliant not only with the National Flood Insurance Program, but it's also compliant with the Mass State Building Code, which requires that you be at least 2 feet above the DFE. He's greater than 2 feet above the DFE, which is, I think, a real bonus of the property.
Can I ask you a quick question, just as a matter of education? I live down there, so we all know it's on a hill. So when they're doing the elevation, where do they get the base from? How do they go from where?
Greg Moss could probably talk about that better as an engineer, but across the country, if you visualize this simplistically, there's a flat plain across the country, and it's called NAVD, and it's nice now. They basically reset that horizontal datum in 1988. So this is to strip the horizontal datum, and then there's USGS benchmarks, there's NOAA benchmarks that are available that are specifically elevated. There's a specific elevation with these benchmarks. So the surveyors will go out, they'll find these benchmarks, and they'll know precisely the elevation of that benchmark. And then from that benchmark, that's where they'll take the elevation. But simplistically, basically, it's just a horizontal plane across the country that they measure vertical elevations from.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So basically, this is a house here, and again, it's, it's compliant with the National Flood Insurance Program regulations as well as the state building code, which is a real plus for them down here. Now, the primary purpose of the project, as you can see here, is the septic system is exposed. When the elevation certificate was done back in July, the photographs that accompanied the elevation certificate, the septic system is completely covered. So it's been uncovered through the coastal storms recently. But the primary purpose of the project is basically to try to protect the integrity of the septic system itself and to come in compliance with 310 CMR 15, the regulations which require, for septic systems, require a minimum of 9-inch cover over a septic system which is exposed. So what we want to do is, and I'll get into a little more detail on the photograph, but basically what we want to do is we want to do cobble nourishment of the dune itself to protect the septic system, not only to protect the septic system, but we also want to protect the pilings that are associated with the dwelling itself. So here's the septic system. It's over here on the other side. It's exposed here, but you can see it's pretty much exposed to the ocean as well. So the cobble nourishment, basically, and I'll show you a picture of what we are actually anticipating. But basically, what we want to do is we want to nourish over on the other side to cover the septic system and protect that against damage from coastal storms. But we also want to try to protect these pilings to protect the integrity of the building itself. Here's a Google aerial photograph where I measured the square footage and the volume of cobble that we would need to both cover the septic system and to cover the pilings in the central part of the house and down to about this area here, almost to the front pilings. And I have another photograph that I'll show you. But I think it's approximately 4,700 square feet and about 263 cubic yards of cobble that would be needed to cover this area here. Now here's the septic system over here. So this is really one of the critical areas that we want to deal with nourishing. But we want to nourish under the house as well to bring the cobble back that has been eroded over the years due to coastal storms. So what I did was, I'm going to provide these pictures here for the file. But what I did was, because it's a cobble nourishment, basically a dune restoration cobble nourishment project, we know that once we put the cobble in, the first few storms, the cobble is going to equilibrate to a stable angle based on the cobble that we're going to use. What we're going to do is we're going to use between 4 and 8, and more than likely, mostly 4 to 6 inch sub-rounded cobbles. I'm a coastal geologist. I've been studying coastal geology in this state as well as around the country for over 30 years. The research with cobble shows that sub-rounded cobble has a tendency to move landward during coastal storms, where sand usually moves offshore and creates sandbars. So that sub-rounded cobble is really a plus in an area such as this, where during storms, which hopefully it's going to move. Some of it obviously is going to move seaward, and as it moves seaward, it's going to nourish the other parts of the beach and enhance those beneficial functions of the other parts of the beach of storm damage prevention and flood control, which we know is in the regulations. So I basically I did this little template here. I didn't think a survey was appropriate, an actually topographic survey, because you go out and do a topographic survey, you do a dune restoration in the cobble area. The first few storms, the whole cobble is going to equilibrate to some natural angle.
What's that term, Jim?
What's that?
Equilibrate?
Equilibrate? Meaning
Yeah.
flatten out. Okay.
Yeah. You notice I want to scratch you. If anybody got itchy with my presentation.
No, I just, that was a new one. Flattens out.
Remember it.
Okay.
Coastal geologists use it because we have to, because we deal with moving landforms, eroding landforms.
Equilibrate.
So once you put the material in there, it's going to equilibrate to some stable angle based on the size of the cobble. So a topographic survey basically is almost, it's almost non-existent once a few storms move this cobble around and put it into a stable slope.
Got it.
Okay, so here's basically, if we're looking from the north side, of a standard lane here, basically this is the sort of the template that we're going to use. We're only going to fill about 2 feet high throughout that lot, not the entire lot, but but around the house, about 2 feet. That will mean we'll get about 12 inches over the septic system itself by adding 2 feet around the entire house. So this is basically this is the view looking from north into the house here. This is basically just a template showing that we'll have about a 2-foot depth of cobble. This is looking from the south north here, and you can see basically I just started. The road is up here, Stanton Lane is up here. The septic system is on the other side of the house. So basically what we want to do is we just basically want to put cobble down here at approximately 2 feet at an angle, and then eventually a few storms that slope will become less steep, and you'll see the front part of the beach as well. Once it gets into the front part of the beach, then the waves will distribute it, and it basically will be a benefit. Now, one of the big problems with that is once we put the cobble in there, once the cobble starts to erode away, we're right back into the same situation where we're going to have to merge again, primarily to protect the septic system and the pilings itself. So, in order to provide a little longevity, a little bit more longevity to the cobble, what we'd like to do, under the house, you see these boulders here, under the house here? You see these boulders here? This is looking from the ocean, looking at the house here. These boulders here, as a coastal geologist, as a geologist who's studied glacial environments, these are not erratic. These are not natural boulders. These were boulders that were brought into the site. And I didn't do a historical analysis, but I'm looking at why are the boulders to the side of the house? So the only thing I can think of is that these boulders were brought in at some time in the past, obviously before August 10, 1978, which was the promulgation date of the coastal wetlands regulations. But these boulders were more than likely brought in to help protect the house. So I'm thinking the boulders got redistributed, or the house got moved or something, but the boulders are basically, they're basically doing nothing. The barrier is still eroding. So as a part of this project, we'd like to do dune restoration, do the cobble nourishment, protect the septic system, protect the dwelling, the pilings to give integrity to the dwelling. But we'd like to reset these boulders in front of these pilings here. The boulders are there already. They're not doing a lot. They're not doing a lot in this location here. If we were allowed to reset these boulders, we're not going to use trap rock. We're not going to use filter fabric as you would in this typical revenue. Basically, what we like to do is just bunt them together, just to give a little bit more longevity to the cobble itself. Now, as a professional geologist, I will tell you that if you put boulders in front of the pilings here, it's basically just to give a little bit more longevity to the cobbles. It will not, and I will repeat this, in my professional opinion, it will not adversely affect the function of the barrier beach or adversely affect the migration of the barrier beach landward. Basically, all it's going to do is give a little bit more longevity to the cobble, but I do not believe in any way, shape, or manner that it's going to impact or adversely affect the barrier beach function. And eventually, the storms are going to move the boulders, and they're going to end up relocating under anyway.
Really, they're the only larger rocks on the entire beach until you get down to the seawall.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they were brought in artificially.
Right, yeah.
The source-
Otherwise, there'd be more around there if they were. Yeah, right.
Exactly. The source of this cobble is basically it is offshore. I've scuba dived offshore, and I've seen 30-foot mounds of this beautiful cobble.
Really?
Yeah, and it's astounding. And that's where that's where the source of the cobble came that created basically Man Hill Beach and the Stanton Lane area as well. So basically, we'd like to just move those, just to give it a little more longevity. The boulders are going to be redistributed over time anyway. And again, in summary, I think that bringing the cobble in, protecting the septic system, protecting the integrity of the dwellings, relocating these just to give a little bit more longevity to the cobble, I think it's fully compliant with the local Scituate and the state wetland protection regulations. I think the cobble is going to add to the storm damage prevention and flood control characteristics of the barrier beach itself, and I do not think those boulders in any way are going to cause an adverse impact of the function, the storm damage prevention and flood control function of the barrier beach. That's basically the project.
Okay. Penny?
Okay, my first question, the cobble and everything, that's great, it really needs to be in. I would almost say do it deeper, because this is crazy down there. But I'm concerned about how are you going to move those boulders, what kind of equipment, and whether or not there should have been a notice of intent if you're going to dig them out.
Well, The point about a notice of intent, you're going to have to spend somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000 for a survey.
I hear you.
And I think, the cobble's going to equilibrate, the survey's really not going to matter. It's not going to be the same topography. Moving the boulders is basically the same equipment that you're going to need to bring the cobble in. You've done, place the cobble around the house and under the house itself and over the septic. The same equipment, a small dozer or a small front-end loader is going to have to be used to bring that, to actually distribute the cobble and put it into some form. It's the same, it's basically the same piece of equipment will be on the beach, spreading it out,
Spreading the
cobble
cobble out. You wouldn't be bringing bigger stuff in.
No, we won't need that, and that's,
And plus, there's a road that goes right to it for the most part, so you wouldn't have to travel much across the beach because the road goes right up to the
Well, it's
house.
all cobble, you're not going
Yeah.
to hurt it.
right now, it's
Lisa drove
Yeah,
out there one day
road, yeah, right, yeah.
with you, with me, scared of the daylights out of me.
Can only imagine.
Oh, it was interesting. She got the Jeep and decided to try it out. Snitch. Come on, Richie.
I'm good, thank you. I'm good.
Paul?
Is that a tight tank, or is there a leaching field associated with that?
There's a leaching field.
There is. Do you plan, when you rearrange your boulders, to stick a few in front of that as well, or just in front of the pilings?
I'm going to have to do a little research on where that actually is.
I think it's a leaching pit.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you still might want to protect that.
Protect that as well.
Yeah.
Before
Yeah,
any
no.
equipment is on the site, that's going to have to be taken care of without question.
Right.
Lisa?
And what I'd like to,
Okay.
No, that's okay.
and what you'll notice in the RDA request is that we're going to take pre-construction photographs, we'll take post-construction photographs, and as a coastal geologist, I'm really interested in how this is going to function, its longevity and so forth. So I'll be out there photographing it, monitoring it, and I'll be more than happy to give you all the information that I gained from.
That'd be helpful.
Very.
Nancy could use that.
Nancy can, yeah.
Where are you going to get the cobble from?
There's a number of places you can get it from, but I designed a cobble restoration project on the backside of Duxbury Beach to protect the road that goes out to 300 seasonal homes. We got the cobble from PA Landers. And and there was another quarry on Cape Cod that we also got the cobble from, and I analyzed the both of them. It's not going to be washed, but it's going to be cleaned, it's going to be sieved, so it's just going to be cobble. The point about cobble nourishment is you can't have any sand in the interstitial spaces when you're dumping it down, because then the whole cobble just basically collapses down, and the research has shown that. So basically what we're bringing in, just cobble that has had the sand sitting out of it. I can't say right now, but the first place I would suggest is probably PA Landers in Plymouth. There is another quarry on the Cape that provides it as well. It wasn't as clean when they gave us the samples for that place, so pleased with what we got at that.
Okay.
Pat?
Well, this is a project, if the boulders weren't there, they wouldn't be allowed to be put there. So they're there, so it's a little bit different than some of the projects we look at. I mean, they're looking for either a negative determination of applicability, and the choices are positive and negative. But as to what Penny said, most of the time when we have equipment on the beach, it does involve a notice of intent, but we have allowed cobble to be put on there under a minor activity or an RDA. So I think your argument is that the machine's going to be out there putting the cobble down, would it be possible to move the boulders? So I think, it's a question of, should it be a notice, should it be DOA? I think everybody's in favor of covering the septic, building up around the pilings, and, there'll be ongoing nourishment, I'm sure. It's just, how the state would view an approval of this without an NOI. So.
Let's approve it, see?
Yeah, I mean, the rocks are already there, all they're doing is moving them a couple feet.
Yeah, if they weren't there, you'd never be able to.
Right.
They're almost in front of the house now. I mean, if you look at it,
Yeah.
there's some here, there's some up in there, which were probably redistributed because of storm waves.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure the blizzard of '78 was what moved them.
Yeah.
Because they got slammed, that house.
Or 91.
Stretch one.
91 storm as well.
Or 91.
Well, yeah, but
was-
78 they
well,
really got.
There's a couple of, sometime you should look in Ralph Cole's office, MR Survey. He was the principal, he was running the Norwell office for Boston Survey Consultants, and it was their office that fought, the house that you're working on is actually the top 2 floors of a house that wound up almost into the woods, and they actually retrieved it, cut off the bottom that was damaged, and then put that house back for the Stantons back in '78.
Wow.
And then there was a big revetment. Those piles that are left there
Oh, yeah, the ones in the front?
supported a bunch of steel sheeting that were driven that whole length. We rebuilt the house that's most northerly. So that house was a huge home that was there, and after the blizzard of '78, it was the first floor deck and a toilet sitting on that deck.
Well, history.
And so,
House looks nice.
but part of the orders of conditions back there to build that house, that northerly house, was we had to remove all the steel sheeting, so as best as we could, along with as much concrete and things like that. And it wasn't over the years, I mean, this is, and the houses, they allowed them to move back 25 feet. That Stanton Road was 50 feet wide, and they cut it in half, and they allowed them all to move those houses back another 25 feet.
Well, that's why you see the pilings up closer.
Yeah, yeah.
And, but there was an awful lot of material out in front of there, and they were protecting it with, it was a mishmash of poured concrete, there was steel sheeting, there was wooden walls bolted to pilings, and then in '78, that just took a tremendous hit. And then subsequent storms have done a lot of the washover.
So you can offer Nick.
Sure, a question, and this is something that we should get to the audience too, but all the cobble that washes over, we keep talking to the state about that and being able to retrieve it, and at times, they haven't been as restrictive on that. But I walked down over the pile, and there's a brook or drainage that comes from the Egypt Beach parking lot, and then it goes under Man Hill Extension and then into Musquashkett Pond. And that cobble is right at the edge of that brook. It's probably starting to fill it in.
Already filled half of that.
Yeah.
It's
So,
unbelievable.
At some point, I would assume that we're going to have to look to either mosquito control or somebody to open some of that up. Otherwise, Egypt Beach is going to wind up not draining, and Stone Ave and all those houses at the bottom of Stone, and what's the other?
Wheeler.
Wheeler.
The mosquito control removes the sediment on the backside of Peggy Creek.
Yeah.
Keep that drainage goes, because if it fills in, you're gonna end up with, water quality, significant water quality issues in some of the
And
salt ponds.
Right, and I don't know, I think you were part of, when we were trying to resolve some of the water quality issues in Musquashkett Pond.
Yeah.
And the ways to correct those was to clean out some of this stuff and get the water to flow and all that sort of thing again. So,
The part of the pond that's closest to this area that we're talking about is practically full of cobble. I mean, there used to be nesting swans there, and they can't go there anymore because there's no more water.
Jim, I have a question for you on, if the boulders weren't there, how would that impact the cobble? And if the boulders are there, I mean, are we gonna be losing more sand because the boulders are there? And it may protect the cobble, but you're gonna lose more sand off the beach? Or is it gonna be, it's gonna help you keep the cobble and it's not gonna do any negative impacts?
I don't believe there's gonna be any significant negative impact that you're gonna be able to visually see with the boulders. They're just gonna be butted together. You're still gonna get wave overtopping, you're still gonna get the cobble moving around, and there's not gonna be a lot of reflection off the boulders just because of the small size. I mean, if you look at them now, they're partly buried, which they'll sink in and be partly buried. So you're only gonna end up with half of the boulders sticking above. So basically, my goal is basically just to give a little bit more longevity to the cobble. If you go out there or even look at the pictures here, you can see that the sand that's seaward of the cobbles itself is basically on the same elevation on both sides of the boulder. So it's really not, I can't see that it's having an impact that would be significant enough to.
a couple of the other houses northerly of that one have still remnants of concrete foundations, some boulders, this, again, sort of a mix of similar, kind of whatever the remnants are of the old
Yeah.
foreshore protection or whatever people called it, yeah.
Foreshore protection. That's almost like you full of great.
We're going to keep that one in the...
Except one's real, yeah.
Anybody in the audience would like to comment?
Just since you were talking about it, I live next
Just
to
your name and address, please.
Louise Fund at 20 Stanton. There's actually some stuff that's actually very dangerous that gets exposed at particularly low tides, like an old steel bar, retaining wall or something, and if some of the surfers or swimmers ever, it's like very dangerous things sticking out, and I've often wondered if there any remedy for it and whatever. But anyway, there's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of stuff still in front of our houses from years ago.
When we cleaned out the foundation and stuff, in order to drive the piles, we had to remove the foundation and as much as we could. We had some pretty big equipment there, and, they had poured and dumped so much material. I think that, if I remember right, that sheeting, we were like in a 6-foot ditch and burned it with a torch as deep as we could, but now it's all, it's just getting more and more exposed every year. So,
What the town of Marshfield did, where they had steel sheeting that was all deteriorated, it was on a public beach, basically, right on the seawall before you get to Grand Rock. They just put some boulders in front of it.
well,
It's like chasing,
yeah.
it would be good if you could get it out in the proper location without causing significant impact to the landward areas.
Would the cobble that you're going to use, Jim, would it be similar to the material that they used northerly of the last house? The town did sort of a nourishment project with a lot of, it's basically screened gravel, maybe 6-inch, 8-inch material.
Yeah.
Did you happen to notice that when you were looking
On the northern side of Manhill?
on the northern side of Manhill Extension, they added more material to that berm going down to Surfside Road, and it was, kind of washed
Yeah, the town did, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they couldn't get the actual shingle material, so it's kind of like stone that was out of a gravel bank, but cleaned.
Yeah, that was a little bit more angular than I would look for.
Okay.
The material that we got from PA Landers on the backside of Duxbury was more sub-rounded.
Oh, good.
I prefer the sub-rounded because based on the research that I've read, the angular material, once that, I don't want to confuse the word.
That's fine.
Vertebrae.
If you have angular material, you get a stone, the angular material will slump to some stable angle based on its size and based on the energy, but the angular material isn't going to have a tendency to move landward, which I'd like to see happen here.
Okay.
That the sub-rounded material will. Because if we can get it to not go seaward, the angular material, if you put it on the front side here, the angular material, once it slumps down and goes onto the beach, there's a chance it's not going to provide that, it'll probably get buried. It wouldn't provide as much protection as the sub-rounded would as it continues to get piled up in the front
Oh,
side.
roll with the waves.
Yeah.
If we, which I'm in favor of an RDA, a negative determination for this, but can they do maintenance under an RDA? In other words, if this gets washed back, is it possible for the owner to just come back and
Let you know.
They definitely have to come back in because it may involve moving, material from up top back down if it's, and the state has told us that we really have to not, hurt the integrity of the dune, so. But I think we could do it with a meeting with the property owner, maybe even on site or something.
Yeah.
If I were retained again, I'd come in with, if there's no filing necessary, even if there was no filing necessary, I'd come in with something like this and give it to the commission, at least that we have a record of what's happening. You need to know what's going on.
Because I had been involved in maintaining some of these houses over the years. I don't anymore for prior owners. And the other piece was maintaining the access road. And we used to try to cut the road back to the level that it was before, but we were really undermining the Barrier Beach. So the orders that were written for your home, and I think the Stantons, it was sort of a joint effort, was to just let the road get higher, put some more gravel up high as opposed to keep trying to dig down and get back to a lower level. That just wasn't working, and it was, you know, as the beach moved back, we were digging into more and more of the beach. So the orders from that one, I think Stan might have worked on that one, and it was to just start putting gravel up higher and let the road be a little bit higher, which did cause some problems, like the water, where the water line is, and all that sort of thing. You can see, like, where the telephone pole and the wires used to be, you know, 15, 20 feet in the air, now they're maybe
Touch
8
them.
feet. Yeah, you can almost touch them.
I think it's okay to rebuild, I think it's okay to do that on a mixed sediment beach.
Yeah.
A mixed sediment beach, but I mean, if it's a strict sand dune, if it's a Barry beach, if you build the dune too high, prevent the overwash from happening,
Yeah,
you actually start narrowing the Barry beach.
I see.
Shown along the Mid-Atlantic state. So on a sand versus a mixed sediment beach, there's different techniques to preserve the integrity of it.
Okay. Anybody else?
I make a motion for negative 3.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thanks for the
Thank
information
you
as
for the,
well. What's that
And the
word?
new word.
yeah,
Equilibrate.
I won't be using it. I won't be using it in the near future.
It's not
Thank
the same
you.
as equilibrate.
How do you spell it?
Check out redistribute.
Equilibrate, if you did it for me, please. EQUILABRATE.
Speech,
Right.
A little more angle than I would use.
No, it was rounded, but it was just... Yeah, so Frank, I was just saying that we'd want to check on the cobble that gets selected before it gets placed on it.
Right. Yeah, maybe we could get a small sampling or something.
We'll give you a bucket.
Well, you know, out there or something.
I'd rather show it to you before
Okay,
too much comes up.
okay.
I could grab it while I'm there. I'm there every day.
So we get a bunch of notice of intents to move through. There was I did notice,
Yeah,
we're going to get an update on Coastal Advisory Commission. Nancy, are you staying just for that, or are you here for some of the other pieces?
She's just visiting.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I wasn't there, so
Because as much as I like Al, I could spring you first if I... Sorry, Al. Then I guess we'll go on to the Town of Scituate, Mr. Bangard. So this is a continuing the hearing for Town of Scituate Countryway Multi-Use Trail.
Yes, thank you.
There were some emails back and forth today on this, right?
Yesterday.
Yes.
Fire away. Anything else you want to add to what you gave us the other night?
No, I think one thing that you had asked that we look into was the impact of the Water Resources Protection, Watershed Protection Act.
And again, we don't have jurisdiction on that. It was
Right.
just a sort of...
But I did follow up with the zoning enforcement officer who has the enforcement decision-making over this particular zoning bylaw, and his opinion was that the construction of the regional trail, a recreational trail along the easterly side of Country Way was not a concern for him for a number of reasons. One is that it is a pre-existing use, it's a disturbed area, and that it is it actually improves drainage in the area. The second thing that you asked was there any peer review of the project by a second engineering firm or a second set of registered engineers? And the answer to that is I spoke with the Department of Public Works, and since the spring of 2013, they have been supervising and overseeing the engineering services being provided by Horsley Witten, the engineer of record for this project. They reviewed it at the survey stage, the 30% design stage. They made input at the 50% design stage, and they are satisfied that their work meets or exceeds the standards required for Scituate Public Works projects. And thirdly, I got in contact with the chairman of the Water Resources Committee, John Clarkson. I haven't heard back from him. I just want to make sure that he was up to date on what this project was and the role and the consideration by the zoning enforcement officer.
Thank you. Penny,
I don't have any questions.
Bill, can I have those letters when you're done?
Yes, sir. Good.
Rich? I'm good. Paul? Lisa?
Good and all set.
Kat, anything else?
Well, there'd be some conditions we'd want to have on there about the areas that cross, where the road crosses and the trail will be crossing over streams that feed the reservoir, and there's wetlands and intermittent streams. So we'd really want to see some erosion controls there and meet ahead of time. Sometimes with public works projects, they get going, and we want to have all the conditions in place and erosion controls prior to the work.
Okay. Well, there was erosion control shown on that plan.
Yes.
Yes.
There were, along those areas, but I think that's a good point to make sure that in those sensitive areas, that pre-construction and Pat going through it, just the lack, actually, is there anybody else in the audience that wanted to speak to this? Greg?
Question. Is the project subject to Mass DEP stormwater management standards?
I think it was. I think that the letter I asked for a review from DPW that it met the standards. And you're asking if it is Mass DEP, DPW standard?
If it meets Mass DEP stormwater management standards. On the WPA Form 3, page 7, you need to click off whether it's applicable or not. I just want to know whether it's yes or no.
They included, like first flush, I'm probably using the wrong word, but all the drainage, they've added that to all of those pieces. You're welcome to take a look at the plan, but that was one of the questions at the last meeting, was to make sure that they added all that along the way, which they have.
That satisfies my question. Thank you.
That's one of the things we were hoping for, if they're doing this work, to increase any cleanup of runoff from the street. So that's been added. Anybody else? Pat, did you have anything else you want to?
No, I was just checking the NOI to Greg's question.
I think if you take a look at the plan.
Page 7.
7 of 9.
7.
Yep.
Yes, it was checked off as it is part of DEP stormwater standards, and it constitutes redevelopment on the NOI.
Okay.
So,
Right here.
Yeah, that satisfies my question. Thank you.
Right.
Okay, I make a motion.
But yet, just absolutely be sure, relay that to who's ever running with the ball with this, that we want to do a good pre-construction and review those pieces.
Erosion controls work at all times. I make a motion to close.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Anybody? Nope. Good.
Thank you.
Thanks for...
So then you'll issue an order of, order of conditions,
Yep.
which Carol provides, right? Or
Yep.
comes through
And then
you.
somebody's got to register it,
Right. Okay.
record it, rather.
All right, good. All right, thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks for
Al.
really...
You bet.
Appreciate your working on that.
You bet. Thanks. See you later.
Is it Deconcilious? Deconcilious?
One more I. Deconcilious, I think.
Deconcilious. Well, after equilibriate, I'm still... Let me... On January 13th, 2016, at 6:35 PM in the Town Hall, the Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 the Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Gregory D. Concilius to repair a septic system on property located at 142 Humrock Beach Road, Humrock. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Good evening.
My name is Robert Crawford. I'm representing Mr. D. Concilius. The location of this project is on a T-shaped parcel of land comprised of two lots between Newell Street on the north, Dodge Road on the south, and the Atlantic Ocean on the east. Basically, the project consists of replacing the existing cesspool with a 1,500-gallon septic tank and a bed of leaching chambers 19 feet by 32 feet in an area where the elevation is between 9 and 10. The house itself is partially located within a VE zone elevation 19, and the rest of the lot and the entire septic system, with the exception of, well, all of it actually is in an AO zone depth 2 feet. In connection with installation of the tank and leaching chambers, it's also necessary to sleeve the water main that runs between Newell Street and Dodge Road, and partially relocate a partial section of the existing gas service and sleeve a section of the water service. I'll try to answer any questions you have.
Thanks, Frank.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I want you to see if
Do you think it impacts you at all or anything? Did you get notification?
No.
As, it's not on your street?
No.
But it's another house?
I'm in the corner of Newell Street.
But it's another house away?
Yes.
If you, I think it's, with that information, if you don't think it impacts you and it's not going to impact how you decide on this,
No.
I don't have a problem.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Penny?
I guess my only quick question is the existing cesspools, it looks like there's two of them. Will they just be filled in and broken down?
One of them will probably be dug out.
Okay.
The other one is on the abutting property.
Yeah, I know.
Can't do anything about that one.
Is that on Stewart's property?
Pardon me?
On the abutting property, is that Stewart's?
It's on the Newell Street side of the
So
property.
it'd be Stewart's property, okay.
Yeah.
Do they at least have to fill them or anything, Bob, or they just can't do anything with them?
I'm sorry?
The cesspools, can they at least fill it in, or do they can't pump it?
It'll be pumped and either filled in or dug out or collapsed and, you know, the void filled up with
Okay,
sand.
all right.
It will be pumped out and, you know,
Even the one on the other property?
no.
No, they can't touch that.
I don't know whose house that is from. I could see no pipe going between these two.
Oh, I see,
And
okay. So
it's
we
also
don't.
uphill by 3.
I got it. Okay, yeah, we don't
I
want to.
think it belongs to the other house.
All right,
Oh, okay.
I thought it belonged, I thought it went with
I
this
did
house.
too.
Well,
Okay,
that's- Yeah.
sorry.
No, but the Board of Health requires you show systems on abutting properties, so that's why it's there.
Got it.
That was my...
Just trying to send this on a goose chase, Penny.
I'm sorry, I just, where it said existing cesspool, I thought...
Where are we with Board of Health approval?
I believe so, yes. I have 3 copies of a revised drawing. There's no revision to the system, any of the components of the system. She wanted details of the tank and the distribution box, and also the maker of the leaching chambers put on the plan, which has been done. And
So that's standard part of the OC, right?
Yeah, Carol, did Jen have comments on this?
didn't hear that.
Uh,
I'm in the back from that.
Yeah, there was another project she had, she was going to require some changes, and this one, it was like, there might have been a minor thing, but she didn't have any concerns about this, so, but
Okay.
she didn't get a chance to sign off on it today. We can close contingent.
And we have a
upon-
DEP number.
We have a DEP number,
Yeah,
yeah.
everything.
Okay.
Good.
Well,
No questions.
Lisa?
The only condition I would want to add is where the system is going, right beyond that, there's a big area of vegetation, if they could
Right,
just leave
I
that.
tried to keep it in the area where there was a minimal amount
Right,
of
out by where you
loss of
enter in
vegetation.
the driveway, so that would be good.
Well, you couldn't have put it any further from the ocean, so, on their lot.
Not in conform to the setback requirements, so.
Right. Okay, anybody in the audience?
I make a motion to close.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. But I'll just keep a pile up here of stuff that's for you and... Nope.
I'm just dropping.
This is 40 at Hawthorne Street. On January 13th, 2016, 6:45 PM, the Town Hall of Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of James 40 to elevate a dwelling on property located at 31 Hawthorne Street, Humrock. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Good evening.
Good evening, how are you doing?
If you've got an extra plan, or we could share one. If you've got a
Here,
spare.
you want this?
Thank you. That's all right.
He's got
You
one,
got one.
yeah.
My name's Darren Grady from Grady Consulting. I'm here on behalf of James Ford and Mona Bonin. Their project's at 31 Hawthorne Street. They're proposing to raise the existing dwelling, shown in the front lot here, onto concrete piers. The resource areas that they're in are Barrier Beach and FEMA flood zone AO2. There's also a coastal dune on their property here, not near where the work is being done, and across the street, across Hawthorne Street here. The project does have a DEP number, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
How far is it going up?
Between, I think, 2 and 3 feet.
It's the exact same footprint, right?
Exact same footprint.
You don't have any foundation plan, do you?
I actually do. Hold on one sec. If you don't take this one tonight, I'll be happy to make copies and...
Okay.
It's not on the right piece. Existed in Amaraka. Didn't know an 82 existed in Amaraka.
Quite a bit, actually.
It's in the south end, so it's higher.
Penny?
Yeah, I just like wood piling, but just the concrete part.
There's also an email or letter that was asked to be entered into the record from a butter.
Bill?
I'm good.
Richard? I'm good. Paul? Looks good. Lisa?
It's fine.
Pat?
So the structural plans, does that satisfy commission?
Looks good to me. I'm just reading this letter real quick. This, Mark and Elaine Stevenson have a concern as it relates to the coastal dwelling in the back of the property. Given that the applicant may be using contractors that are not familiar with the area, we asked...
They don't want that disturbed.
Okay.
You don't have to go through any resource area to get to this.
No.
There's a couple of areas that should be avoided, and one is at the back part of this lot, and then right beyond that is the passageway behind the Walsh property. So
Yeah.
if those two areas could be avoided, those are the only two real resource areas.
Maybe could we put in a request that just some simple silt fence or some kind of fencing to
To market.
market? they're going to want to be careful with the cesspools anyways, so it's not like
Right.
they're going to be marching around out there back, but maybe some simple fencing or something to,
Sure. Where, do you know where they're looking?
Yeah, just that they're concerned about that dune getting disturbed, so. Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it could be as simple as some plastic fencing with rebar or something holding it, nothing
Sure.
expensive or elaborate. Just-
The septic stays the same?
That's correct.
It looks like they'll probably do most of the work coming from Hawthorne anyways.
Right.
So this current cesspool that has been tested and functioning,
There is a Title V that was done.
Okay, anybody in the audience? Got any other
no,
comments?
just the existing vegetation in the back part of that lot, it looks like it's intended to remain, and that would be good if left untouched.
So in the orders, what we just kind of looked at up here is that maybe some fencing will go between the shed and the house, closer to the shed. Give them, the contractor, some area to work in, but that way there won't be machinery all over the
It's like our
backyard.
conservation post, but for sand. Yeah.
You have your butter cards, too?
Yep, I provided them.
All right,
Just be present. I make a motion to close.
Second?
all in favor?
Thank you very
you.
much. Have a good night.
Thank you. You made a mess of this.
Look,
You want your plan back, Penny?
Yes, no clue.
No.
Jay Peak, I broke my
keep
leg
it,
there
or give it
a
to
couple years
them.
ago.
I-
Great mountain.
Okay. Thank you.
Jake Peak is great.
Yes.
Averages
Thanks. Good luck with that.
465 inches of snow, more than Aspen.
Not this year.
Average.
Tortina?
Tornado.
Tornetta? Not doing well at all here tonight.
You've got three that all go together.
They're all
We open them all at the same time?
together.
Sure.
But they're not doing the same.
So Tornetta at 2 Atlantic Drive, restoration. Turner, number 6 Atlantic Drive, dune restoration and drift bends. And Dobie, 128 Central Ave, dune restoration.
Is this the one that went back and forth?
On January 13, 2016, at 6:55 PM, the Town Hall of Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Massachusetts General Laws, and Section 30700, Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws, regarding the application of Paul Tornetta, Robert C. Turner, and Christine Doyle, William, Keith, and Rosemary Dobie, to restore a dune on property located at 2 Atlantic Drive, 6 Atlantic Drive, and 128 Central Ave, Hummerock. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Good evening.
Good evening. Don Monroe from Coastal Engineering. Representing the three applicants, Mr. Tornetta, the Turners, and the Dobies, who are here tonight. The purpose of the project is to restore in front of 2 and 6 Atlantic Drive, a dune formation to protect the two dwellings. And in front of 128 Central Ave, to add and augment the existing dune formation with additional cobble, sand mix, similar to the beach material that's on that particular beachfront. In addition to the dune creation that we want to do in front of the Tornettas and the Turners, we've done some similar applications of what we call a double sand drift fence, which is constructed of 8-inch diameter poles, 2x6 slats, and 2x6 rails with a 2x6 support bracket off the back angle of the sand drift fence. The installation is in actually a 4-foot trench that we excavate out and then auger the poles down in at that point to a 10-foot depth, so that most of the fence is buried until the beach drops. So we would set the top of the posts and the slats at approximately elevation 11.5. In the narrative, we indicate 11.0, but as a result of an email from Patrick, we found that through the deed research, the two properties, 2 and 6 Atlantic Drive, their property lines actually stop at the line that's common to the public beach, so we had to bring the whole project back closer to the two homes so that we were not working on that particular public beach. So the front face of the fence now is entirely on, the water side of the fence is on the two properties. I have revised plans that Patrick said I could bring tonight with that particular change. We also got an email from one of the applicants concerned, and also Patrick brought up the concern about the area in the right-of-way, Barrett Road. And from my understanding with talking with Adobe's, in the past, there was a connection to a dune that was in front of the two properties that don't have a dune connected to Keith's, Adobe's dune, and people would access up and over that. So, not to put the commission in any way that this is the only design, I want to discuss that with you openly, because I'm not sure what you would feel would be the best alternative, although down on the Cape in the Dennis area, typically what we have down there is designated windblown, the snow fencing, I'm sorry, thank you. Designating the area for the people to walk down so that they're not traversing over the entire dune. That would be typically what I'd propose in this area, so that we would not cause a funneling effect of any tide that might come up that wants to go up Barrett Ave. I have photographs that I'll show you in a moment of the project that we did down in Dennis. That sand drift fence has been in since 2008 and survived those horrible storms that we had last winter. That beach is a cobble and sand style beach that's similar here, although this is a little bit more cobbles to deal with, so probably the material that we would be looking for would be similar, and we'd have to work with Patrick on giving him a grain size analysis of the material that we'd be proposing to put out there. I heard you say Jim would bring in a bucket. We'd do the same thing in this instance. We do have 2 pits on the Cape that mix sand with cobbles. They're not angular, they're more rounded. So we have that option, plus the landers. We could look into using them, and any other input from Patrick or even Jim O'Connell, because I do a lot of work with Jim. We could touch base with him and find out what, where he gets his material. So just as a little descriptive of the installation, this is the beach area that we did some work on in front of, and this is also you can see the cobbles on it. Can you see? I could bring it up closer. And we had a substantial dune that was being eroded and coastal bank. So, and unfortunately, those homes are post-78 that we had to protect, so we couldn't use any rock revetment or any bulkheading. We had to go with a more natural style, and DEP looked at it and approved it. But the installation, here's the trench that gets excavated in front of the dune, then the posts go in. A couple more photographs here of the auger that's used. There's a small bobcat with an auger on it that puts the holes in. So typically what we do is this is a little bit different type of construction style because we had to build the beachway up. So that's what this is, actually an access road because the beach dropped so far. So what we would do in this project would be, rather than build up the road, we would work from a staging area right here in front of the Tornettas, and basically build the dune area in front of the Adobe's first, and then from this area where we would stage to bring equipment and materials in, start from this end and work down, so the trench and the work would only be in this location right here. There'd be no need to travel out in this area on the public beach. So it would be constructed from the north towards the south and ending up in this area and then exiting and connecting the two dunes upon exit. And then installing the snow fencing to mark where the pedestrian traffic could take place. The intent behind our design is to add some of the sandy material so that we're similar to what the Dobies have here, so we can try to get some kind of plantings growing on the lee side of the dune that we create in front of the Tornettas and the Turners.
5 or 6 foot wide.
Just to run through quickly the performance standards, we are at coastal beach and barrier beach, but there's also land subject to coastal storm flowage, and the Dobies have an existing coastal dune. So addressing the performance standards of the 10.27 coastal beaches, the volume and the form of the beach, the project is not necessarily going to adversely affect that because we're using materials that are going to be grain size compatible to what's there. The sand drift fence spacing is approximately 3 to 3.5 inch gap, so the material will still be able to flow in and out during a tidal cycle or a storm surge. The beach will still be able to react to wave action because we're not introducing a vertical structure that's going to block the waves. We're actually only installing a fence that'll be below grade initially with a reveal of about 6 to 8 inches, and then over time it might become exposed, and then during the winter, if it does become exposed, it will act as a snow fence during the summer months to try to trap any type of sand that might blow. It may not in this instance, and then we would be looking for some type of maintenance to be able to come in and restore the material that gets lost during a storm event. So the idea of the fence is to act in 2 ways. One is to try to trap sand, the other is to try to deflect some of the wave energy, but not stop it. It'll still, during a storm event, the one that we have in Dennis, actually you can see that cobbles actually get deposited in between the 2 drift fences and act as a buffer, but they still travel in and out of that fencing. The sediment grain size distribution shouldn't be affected because we'll be using material that's compatible to the beach area, compatible to the dune area. Circulation of water should still remain relatively unchanged. It might, in the immediate area of the exposed fence, might swirl a little bit, but not to the extent that it changes the dynamic so much as like a bulkhead or a revetment would. The water quality, while we're using sand and cobbles, and the fencing would be either CCA treated on the posts or oak posts if the Scituate doesn't like CCA, and then the fencing itself, the slats, is regular pine. We're only changing the relief and elevation of the actual fronting dune in front of the Dobies and the immediate area on the property in front of 2 and 6 Atlantic. We're changing the relief to what we're told by the owners and by aerial views of an dune that existed at that time, sometime in the late distant past. We're not really working on any tidal flats, so that portion of the coastal beach regulations don't really apply. And then on the Dobies property, because it's an existing coastal dune, we're not proposing any structures in that location. We're only proposing some added material onto the face of it, so the whole face is relatively even along those 3 properties. Any questions?
About a dozen.
Actually, down the other end, way down south on the beach in Amarok, there's a small section where they did something very similar to this, and it's just in front of an existing dune, and it does work. It does work, and he wanted to put revetment there, and of course DEP came out and said absolutely no. His is a little different, and it is just a very small.
Right, initially they had some erosion, and then they did some maintenance and brought in some more fill, and then since then it's been
Yeah, and the dune seems to be, you know, it does go
Well,
back and
it's
forth.
an ongoing maintenance battle.
Right.
If you
Yeah.
don't keep up with it, then you end up with what you have. So I think the three owners are really interested in maintaining something that makes sense to maintain, other than just the houses, because just dumping material out there, what's interesting is the Doby's property, how long-lasting that dune has lasted. But I think it's because of the setback more than there's
Yeah.
anything else. And the beach reaches an equilibrium point, even though during storm surges, it all kind of changes, but it's still, over the normal tidal fluctuations, it reaches some kind of equilibrium point.
No, I think this is really,
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
First of all, obviously DEP is in on this, right?
We filed with DEP, they gave us a number, there weren't any comments on the number, that doesn't mean that they approved it, but because we filed with them, they have the right to appeal. I don't know if they will.
Okay.
I have a feeling they won't, because they have approved them similarly
Right,
on the Cape.
Yep.
So,
How much above grade does the fence start out
it
at?
starts out about 6 to 8 inches above grade, and then the bulk of it's down below grade.
Okay. You're planting beach grass also?
On the backside, typically not on the face of the
As an educational tool, when is the best time to plant that?
well,
Early spring.
Early spring.
Okay,
Yeah,
just like everything else?
we
Okay.
do have some experienced planters on the Cape that do plugs, because they're dormant during the fall. And I think Larry Rooney, who's their landscaper, and the contractor that we're entertaining using, they have a supply of plugs, so we could initially put some plugs in, and then they would come back in the spring and augment it with combs.
So the winter storms can wash them out.
Well, we'll try to limit, I'm trying to get the applicants to realize they may want to wait, but,
So
Might want to wait.
essentially, you're building some dune? You are,
correct. And the volumes on the plan are indicated for each
Okay.
one of the properties.
what do we do about certifying that there's no nesting or anything like that, or not? How does that work?
Yeah, it's not listed in the habitat area.
Okay.
We filed with Natural Heritage as well.
Oh,
And we didn't get a determination, but they concur, based on their mapping, that we're not in any natural or endangered species location.
thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I just have one other quick question. How tall, I know there's only going to be 6 to 8 inches exposed, but how tall are the slats?
They're approximately, all right, so they start off in a 4-foot trench, 10 foot, so that's 4 plus 8 is like 15 footers.
The actual slats are?
No, the
No, the
posts.
posts.
No, okay, the
The slats will be,
themselves.
the slats are roughly 4.5 feet.
Yeah.
I do have one more question. Where is this being placed in relation to the tide line?
Oh, on the plan, we're well above, the mean high tide line is out here. This is the mean high tide line.
Gotcha.
Okay, and then we're way up in this area.
See,
Obviously, during the winters, the tide is much higher, but
Right.
we're well above the mean.
yeah.
Just a couple of questions. Could you repeat what you're going to do at the end of Barrett?
At the end of Barrett.
So that, what confuses me is there is going to be a break in this between Doby's property and the other two, correct?
As of right now,
Up in that plan.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It's all right, I apologize. I would like to see them connected.
Okay.
But Patrick raised the issue that you might not want to see that, and the applicants to the south, the Dobies, are concerned about a funnel effect
Right.
in that area.
Right.
So that would be why I'd want to connect it. We have similar situations on the Cape where they are connected, and we just designate with snow fencing where people can walk up and over that resource area so that they're not trampling all over the
And
dunes.
that goes to, personally, I have no problem with it being connected. But we have had experience with that very location with snow fence.
Okay.
And it didn't work very well. And that's a concern that I would have. Not that it's connected, I like the idea of it connected, I'm not sure how it's going to work, though. Because
So when you say you had not a good experience,
several years ago, there was snow fencing there, theoretically for people to walk through. They made it so it was not straight.
okay.
And within 2 or 3 years, am I right?
that it was gone?
It was there for years.
Okay.
When Paul bought the house, he put in, on one side, he put in posts, a fairly thick posts, but it has defined the walking area beautifully. Even if it's doesn't functioning sand, it at least defined the walk-through.
Oh, and I used it.
And it's
It would work, I mean, it'd be worth it to try,
Okay.
I think.
I like the idea of it being connected, actually.
We'll find out why Pat doesn't in a minute.
I know.
What's that?
I didn't mean to put words in your mouth. I didn't
Yeah,
say,
no, I got it.
I don't think he said he didn't think,
Right,
he wasn't
right.
sure about how you
Right,
folks would
right.
feel. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to,
Yeah, no, as long as you don't impair access.
right. yeah.
Yeah,
Paul?
people can get to the beach.
No, I think it looks good. It's a good project.
Lisa?
My concern is the staging area. Storm comes in,
Yeah,
where are you going to move everything?
great question. I don't have the
There's pretty much, there's no up from here, unless you go south.
Well, I think that the contractor that we use, that's going to be probably directed by Larry Rooney, who's familiar with that area, we would have to have a provision that the contractor would have to remove the not the materials, but remove the equipment from the site in the event of a coming storm. So we'd probably either have to trailer it completely off the site, or if there's an area that Larry's familiar with that's to the south, that's higher elevation, then they would move down to that location. Not on the beach, but I mean on the access ways, the roadway.
Yeah, it would be nice to know at least where your new staging area location will be.
Fallback.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not familiar with
Not
the...
here.
Say that
Bring the
again?
equipment to California on a train if they want. Your concern is the equipment's not here if
Yeah.
there's a storm.
I would expect you to condition it to say, no equipment to be left on the beach or in the staging area in the event of a coming storm event. Then it's up to the contractor to get it out of there. If he doesn't get it out of there, then he's in violation of the order, then you give him a cease and desist and a fine. But the order of conditions is what would prevail, so you would probably say, no equipment on the beach in the event of a coming storm. And I think we'll have enough warning to make sure that the equipment is removed from the site. It wouldn't be moved to another staging area, because there aren't any other staging areas that I'm aware of that we could move to, so the contractor would have to either make arrangements with a town yard or a local contractor to park his equipment there.
And how wide is the equipment that would be coming through and going over the beach? Because the area where the staging area is in the dune is quite narrow.
I'm sorry,
Little cat, right?
Go up there.
That's not a...
narrow. From the outside of the fence to the inner dashed line, which is this line here, it's around 25 feet. So the equipment we have is anywhere from 11 to 10 feet wide. So we would be only focused in the middle of this dune area for the trench to put the fence in, and all the equipment fits well inside the limit of work, which we're calling this property line here and this dashed line here. So there's plenty of room. We've actually built revetments in a narrower area where the actual construction has to go parallel to the shore rather than working perpendicular to the shore because of the access. Basically, there's salt marsh usually. So that's plenty of room, to 20 to 25 feet. And the staging area is almost 30 feet wide, so that would accommodate an 11-foot wide excavator and a roughly 8-foot wide bobcat, which would be the two pieces of equipment that they'd be using to do the work.
So you'll just drive over some of the dune that's there to connect it?
When they get
Yeah.
done, actually, this is going to move back, if you look at that drawing.
Right, it's going to be straight across
They're
here.
building a dune right here. So,
Okay.
Yes. So in chronologically, this would get built first. So your machine would come in, deposit material, and back out to here. Then from this area here, that's all built, but this is not blocked off yet, the access way. Okay, so we only build a dune up to there. Then they would work from this end, the north, and walk out backwards as they construct this dune and the fence till they get to the staging area. Then from here, this area here, which is in the access way, they would connect it to and then leave.
And what's the approximate turnaround time from start to completion?
About 2 weeks. Weather dependent. If a storm comes up, they have to move out, then there could be loss of materials, so then more material has to be brought in. I can remember working on the one in Dennis, not last year, but 4 or 5 years ago, where they had to bring in, they lost all the material that they placed, and then a storm came, wiped it all out, and had to re-bring it in after the storm left, so.
We'll work around in a second. Pat, do you want to?
Don answered most of the questions, and I think two of the real important things were it was above the mean high water line and it was on the property owner's property. It wasn't on any part of the public beach. Ongoing maintenance, we could put in conditions for that. Within the notice of intent, the structural protocols, there's a lot of good information about how this is carried out. It answers some of Lisa's question and Penny's question. And then again, inspecting what material is going to be used on the dune. I mean, I know last time we had Rebecca Haney look at it for compatibility, but it sounds like Jim has done a lot of this and Stan has done a lot of this too, so we may want to have a sample bucket and take a look and see how it would. And is it pretty much the same as you would use in Dennis for the, it's just a...
I think it's a little, there is a difference between there and here. Because that's a glacial formation down there that gets eroded, there are some angular rock that's different than up here. So we would have to tap into what you folks use for materials up in this location so that we match more of the rounded form materials than the angular.
And then, do we get abutter cards on this too, Cal? Okay.
I'd love to get some kind of progress report, see how it's working down there.
Well, we'll
As we
take
go
a ride
along.
I don't think we'll have any trouble getting
We'll have
progress
Lisa
reports.
drive.
I'll let you know, I walk by there all the time.
Yeah, we're really looking at this as a pilot project.
Yeah.
We
Yes.
haven't
Yeah.
really, got any with this type of slats and posts that are sunk, pilings that are sunk.
I think it's pretty exciting,
Bigger than
actually.
the
This would be,
small one down
if
that
this
area.
works, it could be an answer to a lot of areas throughout. I think it would be great.
Okay. Yes.
Are you-
Yep, Rosemary, go. Sure.
Yeah.
I hope everyone understands how important connecting the dunes are
Oh, yeah.
across Barrett Street.
Yep.
Without it, the street gets wiped out, it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
But it does need the walkway, and it needs to be kind of a meander, not as it was before, on an angle. Anything that's put in straight
Won't work.
is just a
Right.
Right.
waterway
Sorry.
for water to come through.
Now, could a walkway, Rosemary, maybe be seasonal, something that's, it's just put in for the warmer months and then removed during the winter?
Never has been a walkway, it's just
Okay.
the dune.
It's just a right-of-way.
Okay.
It's just a public right-of-way, really. Public
No,
access.
not really.
It's an access. How's
It's
that?
an access. People on Atlantic, on Central Avenue, the west side of Atlantic. We've looked at deeds, but they have to have had somewhere a right to walk through.
Right.
At either end of Atlantic. There's some dispute about that, but we certainly feel that they have every right to walk through and go down to Oakland Beach.
Yes, sir.
We would like to just point out that the Turners and Paul Planetta are much more at risk than we are and much more anxious to have the project done quickly, and if that could be done, their end done first, and otherwise, the other thing is that Upland Beach really isn't a public beach, it's a beach for the residents of the Silver Sand subdivision.
Okay. Okay, just a quick question I had. Maybe it's just the owner's choice. Installing the fencing on the two more northerly sites and not in front of your Joby's house? Is it just a personal design choice?
We have a very large dune that's still there.
Okay.
We just lost the front of it. It doesn't seem, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Well, it's just that
I just didn't know if there was a, like, geographical, you know, if there's some sort of
No. It's
physical
not an
reason.
engineering or geology.
this essentially is the FEMA dune that lasted for 15 years or whatever length of time it was in front of our house. And it disappeared last year. We're replacing that, and quite frankly, don't want to spend the money for the fence right now because we don't see a need for it.
Got it. Okay. No, I just didn't know if there was something different with the topography or
Design-wise,
materials or something. Okay. Steve?
Just quickly, Steve York, can you write a condition that would say if they lose their dune, they can continue this fence across their property without coming back? So if you want to do it in the future, it's already done?
Interesting.
Well, I think you said that they'd have to come back anyway for maintenance and stuff, so we'd have to...
Well, for a notice, we could build it in as
Yeah.
a condition on ongoing maintenance, as long as we're notified.
So would that be maintenance, just extend it?
I mean, the fence wasn't part of the project in front of their house, so it's kind of a different, someone else buys it.
Well, one of the alternatives is amending the existing order at the time, so that, which is a much easier process. So we could, if Keith says, well, I want to put the fence up now, then we would just amend his application and come before you to say we want to put it in, and then you would either approve it or disapprove.
That's a good solution, Phil.
Does that make sense to you, Keith?
Yes, that makes sense. And the other thing was, at least with the FEMA dune, it was a 5-year renewable.
Well, that's why I think we should make sure, like, if you get a set of orders, your orders carry for so many years, is maintenance, so maintenance is part of these orders. And then it might be a good idea to extend your work out as long as possible. You might not even want to close out the project and actually come back to the commission and request a continuance.
Oh, yeah, extension. You apply for an extension to the order of conditions, which...
The longer you do that, the less you'll have to pay him to...
Pay him, yes, so we can pocket it.
So we could start with 3 years, and then we could talk at that point, see if we can extend it a few more, and just do it in 2-year increments, so.
You know what I mean? It's something you'll have to pay attention to a little bit. But if you request extensions, and we don't have a reason to not do that, at some point, we're probably going to say, geez, it's changed enough, or other things have happened, or you're going to want to do something different, you know, hopefully, maybe none of it will be necessary. That would be real good. But you may want to just keep that in mind. If you keep extending those orders for as long as this commission or another one feels is reasonable, then you can continue to do the work without having to come back and refile. And if Carol makes a good note on the plan that we said that you could also do the fence with an amendment, then that would be...
Just so you'll know, Keith, we do have a mechanism in our computing system that we make people aware 60 days prior to an expiration of an order of conditions that they may want to think about extending it.
Yeah.
So we will make them aware of that 60 days before it comes to expiration. Then we can meet the 30-day before to file that extension. So, yeah, I think that would be a good idea.
And then my only question would be, if the fence is going to be continued, how would we adjust for access?
Well, it might have to be a gap or something.
Yeah.
But it's not very high anyways.
Just, I mean, temporary stairs that you could drop that people could just walk up and down,
Well-
I would think would do less damage to the dune.
One of the other alternatives we've done is stagger them, so that there's actually a passageway through, so one
yeah.
fence is in, we actually do that for animal passage too, down on the Cape where there's access for fox and deer and whatever. You don't have that up here, but we stagger the fence. There's actually a break in the fence, but they're behind in front of one another, then they can just walk around.
That could get complicated for some of the folks down there.
Very nice.
Okay,
Just remember where half of us are from.
Get Frank.
You know, Frank, it's only 3-3 now. Seven's never-
Where's Jeb?
Yeah,
All right.
all right.
We're good.
So, are we going to close them individually?
Another, yes, sir.
A quick question. It's my understanding that the land...
And your name is, please?
Walter Engstrom. I own 12 Atlantic Drive.
Okay.
Just a little bit north of west of where you're talking.
Sure.
If the land is joined, the whole idea is that that's going to minimize possible funneling. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Is Barrett a private or a public road? Private. It was private.
Private street.
So it's really not good that funneling happens there, because that means my access to our property is very, we have to go all around.
I think it would be to leave that open and have that water push down there would only lead to erosion and...
More erosion.
We don't want that.
That's right.
And with that subject, again, I think Turner is 6 Atlantic, and then Chiminello, and then we're around 12. That's at the edge of where you're talking about. Is there an enhanced funneling on the ends of these 3?
That's a good question.
Is there a greater chance of funneling where I am?
I don't think they'll really be in funneling because it's another one.
It's 2 miles away, right?
So you
This is
still have
8?
some end effect, which you can't get away from because we haven't got everybody on board to do the whole shoreline. But I think this is an example with 3 in a row, you're gonna see how there's no end effect between the 3 properties, and there may be a slight end effect on either end because we're just gonna have a bigger landform in those locations than the next one.
So you don't know if it's going to be built up or worn away. In other words, that's to be continued.
Yes, correct.
Sometimes when, if this were a revetment or a wall, and they're not being continued, sometimes they turn in just a little bit. That's a good, in a case where there's like an actual seawall and then it stops, then the concern for the person right next to that is far greater. I don't think that the changes here are such that...
The elevation change is not much. It looks foreboding on the plan, but I think next door, like take, for instance, you're not Fitzgerald,
Well, no, next to it.
next to that. Well, the Fitzgerald property, from the Fitzgerald property to the Turner property, if you look at the profile view, the elevation of the dune is only like 3 feet higher than what's next door, so it's not substantial.
Right, and this isn't going to stop flow.
No.
It's not.
It'll still erode, it'll still act like a regular beach or a dune, but it's not going to act like a structure that blocks.
This one is going to be another area. It's going to funnel all the way to the next houses. It's going to be
Right.
When you build an area and then you have this very small gap in the middle, that's when you sort of bring all that water or energy into one spot.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Anybody else?
Okay, so should we close them individually, or?
I'd say just make a motion to close the 3.
Okay, I make a motion to close Tornetta, Turner, and Dobie.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Good luck with that.
I should give you copies of each one of the revised plans.
Yes.
That's great.
Right now? Sure. We're just going to take a break for 2 minutes. Anybody wants to? Be right back.
She is the boss.
I don't know, I have no idea.
They got peanuts.
Right.
We'll take a look at it, and if we worked on the picture, I think these guys are really excited to see something. Oh, that's good, that's good.
You know the photos we gave you that show the trenches? That's the fence buried. You can see how the wind blows. Another one.
We're taking a 2-minute break. Do you want me to call you?
This area is not going to be the same as it used to be. And this is, the fence is buried. You can see how it's just over there. So as it gets exposed, when we come back.
Well, whenever the contractor,
I'll talk to Jim. Jim knows a lot about it.
all right, thank you, John.
Right, exactly, right. And then we shouldn't have done that. Oh,
Behind to be.
So you're gonna blindside me. Don't worry about it.
Mind about to negotiate. Really? Trying to not be that guy, but also trying to hold the town. Sure. Trying to help, but to some degree, they're old.
The coffee one.
Steve, Costello,
No, but I like your concern. The key is when you're putting the
These are
order.
bad, once you start.
Oh, yeah. You want some?
No, I'm just thinking.
Dinner, yeah.
Question for you.
Yes,
Why do you prefer wood to concrete pilings?
because they're driven in, they're much better. They'll last.
Really?
No, when they're driven in.
As opposed to being
Because the
dug
most
out.
stable ones, the most stable ones in Humrock have been the concrete ones.
Really?
Yeah, that's why I asked. Actually, my son got shot down by conservation 6 years ago because he wanted to use concrete. Got shot down. So that's why I was interested.
How long have I been on this board? I've never seen a...
Well, they are definitely
Never seen
deeper.
this
There's no
thing.
question about that.
Since I started. What, peanuts?
But the piers, of course, go, you know,
Dinner.
I know, but
I was just curious.
I have peanut butter crackers and peanuts.
I just sold them to cows.
Have you heard from Chris Karcher at all?
No. He's supposed to be in touch with you.
Well, he's never, I mean, he doesn't disappear. He wasn't well, and I've been trying to see if something was really wrong, and I'm just gonna have to call his wife.
I'll have to find out.
what's that?
No, I think this is Fieldstone. It's all-
Yeah, Fieldstone, that's what I meant.
Yeah, the other one. Yeah, I don't think anything.
Well, their bills I'm on, they're not mine.
Get Lisa back here, and we'll go.
Let's hurry before she comes back. What?
Be nice.
I like it.
Are you all set?
No issue.
Was it Hillary they had to wait for at one of the debates?
Oh, yeah, she was in the ladies' room.
That's no excuse.
This, right from the get-go, just read that, and we still don't have it.
We can get started with this.
let's go.
complete.
BTZ Realty Trust, Costello, lots 31 and 32 Fieldstone Road.
You still don't have
Concrete
it.
driveway to access 2 lots not included in this filing. Yeah.
They're just showing you.
Mr. Morse.
Okay. For the record, Gregory Morse, registered engineer representing BTZ Realty Trust. This is a continued hearing. This is a notice of intent that we filed for a driveway project off of Long Meadow Road or Fieldstone Road. This is to access 2 residential house lots on the applicant's upland area on his site. But as you recall, there's a wetland that traverses along the frontage of these 2 lots along Long Meadow Road. We've proposed a driveway in with a wetland fill over a portion of that. We've proposed a replication area. I submitted a letter to you back in November 11th, when we had met with the board previously. As part of this project, we evaluated 3 alternatives for access onto this property. One of the alternatives is the access that's shown on this plan with the wetland alteration. The second alternative that we evaluated was access off the end of Bittersweet Lane, where the applicant has frontage. We determined that was not adequate access because it required significantly more alteration than what's currently proposed. And thirdly, the last alternative was to apply to the Zoning Board of Appeals and ask for a variance, which would allow us to construct a common driveway off the end of the cul-de-sac at Long Meadow Road. We applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals. We were on their December hearing. Pat was at the meeting. I believe Penny was at the meeting. We tried to present the case that this property was unique with respect to soil conditions, the wetland soils traversing the frontage. It was not an argument or a variance that they were going to entertain. That was very clear. We ended up withdrawing the application. So we're here with our original alternative of the 3 alternatives, our proposed one. Again, to refresh your memory on the plan, Long Meadow Road at the bottom. In blue, we have a bordering vegetated wetland delineated by Brad Holmes. And then we have the access driveway coming across the wetland here through the 50 and up to the 100. The home construction would be outside of the 100-foot wetland buffer zone. My November 11th letter basically outlined the requirements that the Wetlands Protection Act has for for wetland alteration projects. It also outlined the requirements that your local bylaw has. I can go through those step by step if you'd like, but essentially the Wetlands Protection Act requires that if you're going to alter a wetland, that it be less than 5,000 square feet of alteration, that you provide a 1-to-1 replication area, and that the replication generally be in the same location as the area that you're filling. This project complies with all 3 of those requirements. Your local bylaw is a little more stringent. The local bylaw restricts applicants. It says, within a water resource protection district, no bordering vegetated wetlands shall be destroyed. This is not in that district. And then it says, in other areas, up to 2,500 square feet may be destroyed with replication of at least twice that to lost area. That's Scituate Wetland Regulation 10.12. This project requires an alteration of a little over 2,000 square feet through here, and it proposes a replication at 2-to-1, a replication area of 4,100 square feet. It's in the same wetland replication, or wetland alteration area. I'll turn it over for questions or comments. I visited the site, I believe, twice now with Pat. I think I visited with Penny. I visited it with Frank.
I guess, Penny, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, you know, first and foremost, I have to go back to the original meeting, November 18th, the minutes. Mr. Snow, we asked for an overlay of the whole area, and that hasn't been provided. And that means the 26 acres. And we still haven't got that, the whole parcel that Mr. Costello owns. My other question is, when I'm looking here, okay, at what you're proposing as a replication area, I see a line that says approximate property line, and it looks like the replication area is outside the property line. So I'm a little confused there.
Sure. The two lots that we filed under are the two property lines shown in bold. Mr. Costello owns all of the land on all sides of those lot lines. He owns the land that the replication is on.
Okay, so what is this approximate property line? Not the dark lines, I'm talking that, see it up above the two lots?
Up here?
Yeah, the broken line.
Yeah.
It's between the wetlands and the 50-foot buffer. What is that approximate property line of what?
That's the property line of Fieldstone Road where it was no.
Easier, maybe we can kill this thing if we try hard enough. But DEP already chimed in on this, and to me, it looks like it's a pretty good project. It's not a subdivision road, never will be a subdivision road, it's just a driveway.
Have you actually divided the land for the lots yet, Greg?
Not officially yet, no. There's two existing lots out there, but we're going to end up redividing those lines to gain additional land area to those. You know, the parcel right now is 20 acres plus in size.
Is there... I mean, this is a fairly narrow crossing, so this is not something that would later be used for further development. It's not that big. In conditioning this, could it be for 2 additional lots for the access to the homes, period? I mean, that's what they're applying for.
Is it a shared driveway, a common?
This will be a common driveway, so it'll most likely have that restriction on it with the planning board.
Yeah, I mean, I think the original intent of the Wetland Protection Act and the bylaw is that once you were able to, you don't get a second crack at it by filling a wetland to get to another piece of the parcel.
Right.
And, you know, I understand what Steve is saying, that, you know, they didn't comment on this. I don't believe they have any idea of the history of the lot, and that, you know, there's been some use on the lot. There's no mention of there being other houses out there that have already been built and permitted. This is, all they're seeing is a driveway.
But it also is apples and oranges when you say you denied a wetlands crossing to access a tree farm, which doesn't have to have the wetlands crossing. But in order to put houses there, you can't use the access. You can, so it's not necessarily, this is the same thing. It's kind of apples and oranges.
I don't understand that distinction.
But I guess another thought to this would be, with Fieldstone Road being an improved road, there's quite a bit of upland there. A subdivision road could come in at the end of that cul-de-sac. Maybe that's a question for Greg. I don't know if that's possible or not.
With certain waivers, it's probably possible.
So it's not a
by right plan, most likely.
I mean, I guess I'm thinking that if at one point Mr. Costello wanted to have built a subdivision in there, that he could have. Instead, it's a farm. And it's a nice, in terms of our, I've got a couple of questions about what they do with the manure and all that stuff, but that's not part of his filing. I just, we have concerns about nitrogen runoff and all that sort of thing, but I think they manage that. And that's one of the reasons I was kind of curious where things are. I think that flows towards the Gulf. So obviously, we're concerned about the impact on the property overall, and I don't want to overstep our bounds either.
Yep.
But I guess I look at it and say, it could have been a much further developed piece of property. It's sort of being developed, is pretty good open area.
Unless, if to put a subdivision road in at the end of Fieldstone, you'd be filling more than 5,000 square feet, and, you know, you'd...
Yeah. I don't know how far the wetlands go there.
We're not here for a subdivision right now.
I understand.
And all this talk about alternative means of access, creating your own hardship, all that does get mentioned in the Wetlands Protection Act, but it's all mentioned under the limited project status. A limited project is a project that cannot comply with the regulations, and you're asking for specific exemptions to cross the wetlands to exceed the regulations to gain access on your property. The regulations allow you to fill up to 2,500. We're under that. The regulations in the state allow you to fill up to 5,000. We're under that. So we're mixing our terminology here. We're coming in compliance with the regulation. We're not into that limited project status. You certainly did ask for that overlay of the entire parcel. I apologize, I didn't provide, I think I got sidetracked by the ZBA filing. I will get you a copy of that. But we're not here for a subdivision off the end of the road.
Right. And I understand that.
Two houses.
Right.
Yeah, I can certainly check with legal counsel, too, on this. The hardship, I mean, it is used mostly in the case of a limited project, which allows even filling of greater than 5,000, but that's the only other way you could have gotten into this parcel. This project would have been denied under a limited project because you've already had a way in there.
Right.
But, I mean, we could certainly look into the language with Jim Toomey, so.
All right. Well, I don't want to keep pushing this off. I mean, I think, Steve?
I just want to kind of reiterate on what Greg had said, that really what Pat's talking about is you can't sell an upland entrance and then claim hardship for a limited access project.
Say that again?
You can't sell off your upland entrance and then claim that you have limited access status.
I hear what you're saying.
So it's really that clear.
If you had a large piece of property with that access only, and you've sold it, and then you say, geez, I'd like to come back and access through another area.
Using a limited access status, though, under the state.
Mhm.
But like Greg said, if you meet the regulations, you meet the regulations. And that's what they're doing by being under the thresholds. I just went through this in Norwell, so it's kind of pretty familiar to me.
Okay.
We did get the approval.
In Norwell.
Under the state Wetland Protection Act,
Yeah.
which is the same one in Scituate.
Which also has a bylaw in Norwell, too. I mean, if we're looking for a complete view of the site and other structures and other wetlands, he would need some time to do that, and we could look into it. If you wanted to continue, we could.
I think if we could get from you, Greg, it doesn't have to be a super detailed plan, but a plan of the property, maybe where the barns and any structures like that. I think that most of that would probably show up on the assessor's plan, and then even an overlay of something that we have for wetlands, not to have to go back out and delineate wetlands and all that, but...
Yeah, I have an aerial photo with all the Mass GIS printed out on it, so I'll give you a copy
That would be sufficient information for me.
That would be helpful.
And maybe give us some idea. I realize dividing up the land gets complicated with...
I say one thing, the GIS though, Carol, was that what I was looking at? And it didn't even show the wetlands that you're crossing on the property.
Yeah, but we've got a detail, I mean, the wetlands that we need in detail is this area here. I don't think we need them to go through doing the wetlands on that whole property. A wetlands delineation and then having the surveyor go out and pick all that up for the purposes of what we're discussing here, I don't think
Thank you.
it's needed, and I think we can get a pretty good picture.
Yeah, but it's just, I was shocked.
And then you could go get
show it.
you could go get a riding lesson and see what's
out there. It's beautiful.
Just make sure they don't put you on lightning.
Okay.
Where'd Penny go?
That away.
Can we,
How far out do we want to go on this?
2 weeks.
Okay, I make a motion that we continue, let me see, lot 31, 32 Fieldstone till January 27th, and 705.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Brennan, number 8, Aquinas Path, new build. On January 13th, 2016, at 8 p.m., the Town Hall of Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Mass General Laws, and Section 30700, Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws, regarding the application of James and Linda Brennan to build a dwelling on property located at 8 Aquinas Path, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Jim Pavlik with Outback Engineering. And with me tonight is also Jim and Linda Brennan. And so we have filed this notice of intent to construct a single-family home off of Aquinas Path, which is off of Man Hill Road. And it's an existing gravel way and a 20,644 square foot lot. At the back of the lot, we have this isolated wetland area, and we've shown the 25-foot, 50-foot, and 100-foot buffer zones on it. The existing lot currently has a paved tennis court on it that's within the 100-foot buffer zone, and the back of the lot is wooded. So our proposal here, if you recall, we had come in, I think it was the end of November or early December, to talk to you informally. And at that time, there were a few things the commission had suggested we look into, including some type of mitigation plan, and to see if we could pull the house forward closer to the street and away from the wetland. So we've done both. In the filing here, we have a mitigation plan that Brad Holmes has prepared, which I'll go through in a second. And we also reconfigured the septic system at the front of the lot to make it longer and narrower. So we were able to pull the house forward a couple of feet. And so we're looking to provide a silt fence that would be a minimum of 25 feet away from the wetland. The lawn area, a small portion of the deck would be within the 50-foot buffer, so we're requesting a waiver from your 50-foot no disturbance zone. And to offset that, the mitigation that we're proposing includes the planting plan here that, again, Brad Holmes put together. So there's details of something on the order of 40, 45 shrubs to be planted within the 50-foot buffer zone. The actual work limit that we're disturbing within the 50-foot buffer zone is approximately 1,900 square feet. The mitigation of the supplemental plantings that will provide better wildlife habitat is approximately 4,540 square feet. Other mitigation includes the fact that, again, we're removing an existing tennis court, which has approximately 4,900 square feet of impervious area, and the proposed house and driveway totals about 3,200 square feet, so there's a net reduction in impervious area on the lot.
I know, he's saying it's in what, he's saying
1,700 square feet.
Where's the tennis court?
Right now.
It's up in front, right
Yeah.
side of the house.
It's real fine line, sort of under the, between
Behind,
the
right behind
street.
the septic.
Oh, so it's not in the wetlands?
Oh, here it is.
No, but it is being removed.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's on the wetlands. Okay, I get it. Sorry.
Yeah, it's up near the, closer to the street, but it's within the 100-foot buffer zone. And
It's in the 100?
we're also going to be providing roof drains for the house. So there will be no direct runoff from the house into the wetland. There'll be some improved recharge through that. So that's the proposal in a nutshell, and we'll open it up to any comments or questions.
Penny?
My only concern, it's a tight lot as far as because we what wetlands and stuff are. In the house, you did move and so forth, but probably my biggest concern, once again, is that you don't have much for backyard, and a couple of years down the road, somebody's going to go in and wipe out right up to the wetlands. That I just get really concerned, you know, when you have a tight lot like this and there isn't a yard, and then they come in and say, oh dear, I need a backyard for my kids to play in. Well, that can't happen, and it's happened too many times. So that's just a concern of mine, that there will have to be posts put out there or something delineating that you are not, no disturbance, no cutting, no nothing, leave it alone, let Mother Nature. But other than that, no, you did, you know, like I said, it is a tight lot, and
Okay, I appreciate that.
what we asked.
Appreciate that. I think that's a suggestion we could take, is to provide some type of a, maybe a post and rail fence or some
Well,
other type
something,
of screening.
it would be in the orders if this is approved.
Sure.
You know, because that's what happens all too often when you have such a small backyard, that the next thing we know, we drive by and everything's been cleared. Well, I didn't know. Well, that's not my fault. You know, I just, it's very frustrating as a member of the board to see this happen.
It's just a tennis court.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Bill?
I'm not a fan of having anything in the 50, and that's why we have the regulations. So regardless of how we've monkeyed this around, it doesn't fit, at least that portion of it. The whole thing is in the 100, and to have the deck in the 50, I think, is not something that I'd like to see happen.
Okay.
I appreciate the changes you made. I'm not really in favor of getting into the 50, but I do like the planning plan, and I do recognize that the tennis court's coming up. So I appreciate the changes that have been made.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I think you did a good job of taking our advice from the informal hearing. And, you know, since it's not a bordering vegetated wetland, I think that's the plantings you're going to do and stuff are a good offset for what you're doing inside the 50 to the 25. I think it looks good.
Thank you.
Lisa?
I agree with Bill. I don't think we should allow anything in the 50. However, I think the improvements that you've given back and moving the impervious, and thank you for your cooperation.
Thank you.
Can I ask another quick question? How do we determine that the plantings are more of an asset than the wetlands that are in its natural state?
We ask our agent.
Yeah, it's mostly invasive plants.
Okay.
Back there. There's a lot of honeysuckle, and it's...
Can we flip back to the one with the planting?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay.
Do you want me to run down the...
No, I just don't know, you know, from what's there to what is being proposed, how do we know that that's any better than the way it was, and Pat's saying that it is?
Yeah, I mean, in some cases, you're better off leaving what's there.
Yep.
And then just doing planting somewhere on the upland side, but it's pretty much been overgrown in briars and a lot of other things. But I think if this didn't have a tennis court on it previously and, you know, a lot of impervious, I would have said, yeah, I would have agreed with Bill and Lisa, it's in the 50, you know, you can't do it. It looks like there's, you know, a trade-off of impervious, where it was a large tennis court area, much of that was in the 100.
Yeah.
They've pulled it out, and you have a reduction in impervious on the site. So, I mean, it's kind of a judgment call on the commission.
How do we have a reduction with impervious in the site when they're putting an entire house there?
The tennis court was bigger than what the house and driveway were going to be.
Oh.
Big tennis court.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a big tennis court. Yeah.
So it was half the lot was previously developed, and then there's a big chunk of invasive planting, so one of those gray area ones.
Is Aquinas Path, is that something that's going to be further developed, or is it already in existence, the driveway? Is somebody going to actually come in and build a road there?
Yeah, no, it's an existing way. There's 2 houses on it now.
Is that where Mike Walls just built a house? No.
No.
This plan doesn't really show it, but there's an existing house on this side of the street and one at the end of the cul-de-sac. So this is actually the end of the road right there. It can't go any further.
So there's no more development there? It's just, it's an existing piece, and this was a lot that was alongside of it?
Correct.
It wasn't formed recently?
No, it's been in existence since 1928, I believe.
Okay.
There's 2 lots out on Man Lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's 2 that haven't been built yet. They've been approved.
Okay.
And then this was the 3rd lot. This is the only one that had wetland issues. But there's been a stormwater permit issued on all 3 of the proposed lots.
Okay. Well, maybe to Penny's point, which we had issues just recently at Eisenhower and other places where we've gone and conditioned sites, and then over time, people have expanded because it's a tight lot or whatever. We've put up these posts, the conservation posts, which would have to be placed right at that edge between the proposed lawn and vegetation. So there's posts every 30 feet or something, basically telling people this is a conservation area and don't alter it, something to that effect. And certainly getting that area replanted, it's got to really be noted that what you've got on this plan is you're just about maxed out, you know, to go back later on and say, well, geez, we didn't get enough of a backyard, or we wanted to build something else, or whatever. You're sort of maxing out already on this site. And given that it's, as Paul pointed out, it's not a BVW, it's a small isolated wetlands, to protect it like that, I think we have to have good rationale for allowing people to be within the 50, because we really try not to do that. But when people give mitigation in the form of, in this case, in form of removing impervious areas and then also revegetating that area, I think that's a reasonable improvement.
It is, but, you know, to get back to Bill's point, I've only been out there once, Pat, and if I remember correctly, you have the tennis courts, but then right after that, so this 50-foot that they're going to be clearing for their backyard, that is a wooded area now. Yes, no?
There's a tree line that's shown on there, and it would be
The tree line is way in here.
kind of where the house is.
Yeah, it's where the house is. So, you know what? The more I think of it, our local bylaw is the 50-foot buffer is a no disturb. No disturb. Not you can build in like the 100.
Well, we actually have mitigation ratios for when you do disturb it.
I don't know if that makes up for...
Well, but there's a reason there's a ratio.
Yeah, I know, but... I don't know.
The only thing I'd like to point out that I think is interesting is we always go to what would the state think about this? but we use that selectively. What would the state think about, I hear that all the time in hearings. What would DEP think?
Well, we
of this
just asked it.
project? Right. But I'm just saying, what would DEP think of this project?
I don't know, because
They wouldn't think
have a
anything
problem.
because it's isolated wetlands,
Right.
so they don't even protect
they
it.
don't care. Well,
Right.
that doesn't mean I don't have
No,
to
I'm just
care.
saying, though, I'm just pointing something out. We always, a lot of times, we use
I
their
understand that.
position as a guideline. That's all I'm pointing out. And then, all of a sudden, you don't want to.
I think the other piece that you think about, Penny, is that should someone say, well, geez, I'm going to appeal this decision,
Yeah,
and in this case, someone's made a good, the state would say, well, you have no basis to do that other than your bylaw, and they could
well, what's his
supersede.
ratio here?
It's 2.5 to 1.
We're disturbing 1,900 square feet in the 50-foot buffer, and
Yeah.
mitigating with 4,500.
Okay, all right. It's just, it's very tricky.
The issue here is, it's an existing lot.
I understand
It was
that.
created long ago, and unfortunately, it's the last one in the entire neighborhood to be
Yeah.
developed, so, in some way, we think that wetland probably formed from the other development of the other homes
No,
by...
but it's there. See,
Right.
so we have to deal with what's there today, whatever Mother Nature decided to give us. And it's just, it is very tricky, and if this is sold to somebody, I'm gonna be real upset when I go down there and see that right up to the wetlands cleared. After you plant, we have had people, there's one I can think of right now, where the builder did everything right, the people moved in, and they went in and just wiped out what he did for his mitigation, because they wanted a bigger yard, and then it's like, now what do we do? And it's just frustrating. I just hope that we can make this very, very clear, if we, go forward with this, that you're not getting a big backyard with this house. You got some nice woods going.
Well, I think that's why you put up the conservation.
Well, at this place that I'm thinking of, they pulled them right out.
Right. It could be 200 feet from the...
Yeah,
from a
I
BBW,
understand.
people
It's
can go
just
more
that
than back,
it
yeah, an acre.
sticks with me,
Right.
when we have a very tight lot like this, that I can't stand seeing these things happen.
And on this site too, the posts, they'd be along the silt fence line there.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be back near the wetland.
No, I understand that. Right, okay.
Is the,
just hard.
deck on sonotubes, is that the
Yes.
one for that?
Anybody in the audience? Good to go.
This was a drainage area too, from the street behind and also from your existing house, there's pipes that direct water into this low spot back there.
Right, that head wall is on the other side there.
Right, right. And then there's one coming off of Aquina too, that's drains out there.
Is that approximate shed? I'm getting confused here now. What is that?
Oh,
shed?
that's the neighbor's shed from out back that's right up against the wetland.
That's off this property.
No, I know. See, those are the
That's what
things-
I'm saying. This is the last one to
Yeah,
be developed,
but
and
those are things
everyone
that
else
shouldn't be
has...
there. Both those sheds.
Some commission that's not as sharp as you guys.
It's just upsetting, though.
Well, you can put a shed almost anywhere without a permit unless they...
I know.
Too big, 6 by 8.
But it doesn't belong there.
Right.
Okay, so we ready to close?
Yep. Can make a motion.
I make a motion that we close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Is it Prince? Princey? 134 Humrock Beach Ave, replaced garage and two-story guest house. On January 13th, 2016, at 8:15 PM, Town Hall. Is there an engineer? Is there somebody for this tonight?
They asked for a continuance from zoning board of appeals, but they never contacted us.
So I think, since we've got it advertised, should we open it? And we don't have any cards or anything though, right?
No. You should see all the plans that go with it.
It's a very interesting situation.
Yeah, it's one, this is one.
So Carol doesn't have any butter identification or notification cards?
Nothing. So we already handled
Next door to the one we did earlier.
We can open and continue and then get the cards next time.
Right, and then if they didn't have the cards, it doesn't matter, you could,
Right.
yeah.
All right.
On January 13th, 2016, 8:15 PM, the Town Hall of Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700, Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws, regarding the application of Peter Princey to replace a garage and a two-story guest house on property located at 134 Humrock Beach Road, Humrock. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend.
How far out do we want to go, 2 weeks or a month?
Who's the engineer?
They don't have a hearing with zoning until February sometime.
And we better
So
go.
at least February 17th, at least February 17th.
Okay, I make a motion that we continue 134 Humrock Beach Road to February 17th at
Second.
6:30.
And you'll notify them or try to reach them or something?
Yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You can do that.
What's that?
Add basically a new dwelling.
I don't know.
That's not to us. That's a zoning issue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know how people usually do it, they build a garage
and
with a
put the-
storage space upstairs.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
storage that they store humans in.
Did anybody see this lot?
A lot.
Tight spot.
Everything's tight on that road. Yes. I know the lot very well.
All right. All right, well, let's see if we can get out of here. Not too long.
I'm
Okay.
getting slapstick.
You started slap.
I think that was your best one yet ever.
Do we want to take up water resources, John? Yes, sir, what are you waiting for?
11 Concord Street, enforcement.
Actually, I think we had John on first for water resources. We gave him a time of 8:30.
Go ahead.
I'm flexible. You know?
Well, we had several after
Let
you.
me put it this way, if there's somebody being paid to be here,
No.
whatever.
Pat and Carol are making out like bandits.
Yeah.
They're on double time right
Cleaning
now.
up on the OT.
That's why they get the big bucks.
Well, thank you. My name is John Clarkson. I'm chairman of the Scituate Water Resources Committee, and I believe y'all have seen a copy of our water conservation plan, and I've had some conversations and emails with Pat. I've had a conversation with Frank. I watched a video of one of your more recent meetings. I don't know which one. All I remember it was before the holidays. And I thought I would just come and make myself available to you to answer any questions you might have, just to put things in context. The Water Resources Committee is charged by the Board of Water Commissioners in Scituate. The Water Commissioners also happen to be known as the Board of Selectmen, to deal with all things water. This is, in my mind, this falls into three basic categories: drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater. Our focus in recent years has been working with the Water Department on the renewal of their Water Management Act permit with the Department of Environmental Protection. This is a permit that gets renewed every 20 years. It's a pretty serious thing. And the DEP has issued what I think is best to call a conditional permit. There are no issues with Scituate, but DEP likes to issue these permits on a watershed basis. The South Coastal Watershed is what we're a part of. Some of the other communities aren't finished with all their permit filings and determinations, so once the other communities catch up to the good work that Scituate has already done, they will finalize the permit. As part of that permit process, there's something the water managers are asked to complete, a water conservation plan. It's a 8 or 12-page survey that they fill out, and probably takes the water manager a couple hours to do, but we took a look at it and also were encouraged by then-Selectman Richard Murray to take the water conservation plan and make it a bit more robust and make it far more public process than just having the water department manager sit in his office and fill something out. And so we've been working on this for a couple of years. The water conservation plan is from the conversation I saw on the tape, I understand many of you have probably read good portions of it. You know, before I came over here, I was over at the Economic Development Committee meeting and started off, was asked a very interesting question: what does the Water Resources Committee do? And so I kind of went into the 3 water things like I told you, but then looking forward, the Water Conservation Plan is our attempt to set up an agenda of what our work will be over the next 5 years. The recommendations in the plan are not things that, if the Board of Selectmen approve, mean will be the rule of conduct in the town. What the Water Conservation Plan does is outline thoughts, recommendations, concerns that we have as a water committee, and feel that over the next 5 to 6 years, the town should discuss more openly. Some of them may involve the Board of Selectmen passing a ruling that they're empowered to do so. Some of these things may end up being something we'd bring as a bylaw recommendation, but the acknowledgement of this guidance document isn't a statement that you agree with everything in the plan. What it says is, these are important issues. The people of the town should discuss these issues, and that's pretty much why it's been laid out. Just to give you perspective, our permit renewal will likely, our permit renewal as it's been published will allow the community to use on average about 2 million gallons per day. That's between the main area of Scituate as well as Hummerock, where we actually purchase the water from the town of Marshfield. We're currently using about 1.5, 1.6 million gallons per day. Scituate is a community where people want to live. Scituate is a community where, as you discuss every week, where people want to build a home. Scituate is a community where we hope to bring in more business. Because we are limited in the amount of water that our permit will allow the system to provide, the better we conserve, the better we see to it that the water we use is dedicated to the health and safety, fire protection, things of that nature of our residents and of our businesses, the greater our ability to grow as a community and provide those homes and provide water services for those businesses. So that's where our concern is. Right now, with our current use compared to what our future permitted use would allow, cocktail napkin math will tell you that we could probably allow an additional 700 to 750 residents in town. That's assuming 2.5 people per residence. The permit is firm in laying out that our water usage should be at or below 65 gallons per person per day. And that's a statewide water conservation goal that's being written into the permits. So the better we can conserve water, if we can get our residential gallon per person per day down to 62, where it is now, down to 58, that means we're better able to invite people to come live in our community and build a home or operate a business. So that's pretty much the context for the plan. And if you had any questions or whatever, I will confess, I had to leave my copy of the plan over at Economic Development, so if you have a specific question, you know, if I could maybe reread somebody else's if they have it or what have you, but, or if you want to keep it a more philosophical discussion, I'm happy to engage in that as well.
I've had the pleasure of hearing you speak before. I think you memorized it.
Well, that's kind of you to say, but, you know, I am in a slight panic because it has been a while since I read it. I will also take advantage of being a former Cub Master in this community, scout leader in this community. One learns never to turn down an opportunity to embarrass somebody. So although she isn't here this evening, I haven't really talked to her for a while. Carolyn Keefe, a Scituate resident, and was a student at Villanova at the time that she interned for us. And the bulk of the work, the research, the writing of that plan was really Caroline's, and that's why her name is prominently on the cover. She did a phenomenal job, and we're continually indebted to her for her good work. And so anyway, hopefully your dad will see this clip on YouTube and send it to her.
We usually will rotate through, so it's up to Penny. Do you have any questions of John?
My question was your question, and I understand what you're saying, that these are just suggestions.
Yes.
But sometimes the suggestions we've seen in this town, all of a sudden, they're the rule of thumb. And without the masses having an input into it.
Right.
And that was my only concern. It was dealing with the private wells, okay, and
Yeah, so let's frame the question here. So,
Can I just, maybe I can just, because I think as a, and we're a Conservation Commission, water resources group, we should be fairly parallel in our thinking. And so much has been done. I've attended a lot of the meetings for the public, for the new high school work and the public safety building.
Yep.
And Water Resources had some great input into both those uses in terms of, you know, conserving water, and I absolutely agree with John that the best method is the conservation. I also have learned more since talking with John and Jim and Jen Keefe and all these folks about, you know, I just assumed if Scituate needed more water, they could just go plunk another well in the ground and get more water, and that's not even close to being reality. So you learn as you go through all these process and we appreciate the work, and you know, we've got our own agenda with pieces. We're trying to conserve open space, all those sort of things, and we see those as being most important, and so we have to appreciate what other groups and committees are doing. You don't do all this work and then watch it fizzle out, and we certainly, that isn't what we're here about, that's for sure. To Penny's point, just to be careful as things, they are recommendations that become rules. We're reworking right now our stormwater bylaw because we've found problems that were instituted in the stormwater bylaw that are very difficult to actually implement. It's made hardships for some people that are beyond reason. We also have the tributary piece that we adopted, where no disturbance could be around a tributary, only to find out that that's created a problem when we go to build our own sidewalks.
The 150-foot rule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes we adopt these things to, you know, they're the right...
Good intentions, yeah.
Well, even beyond that, they're the thing that we do need, but we have to think about how they would impact us down the road. And it was actually, probably by chance more than anything else, I actually attended a Board of Health meeting about Lyme disease, and the Water Resources Committee was making their presentation before them, and I picked up a copy and started reading it, and that's the piece that I picked up on, was the wells. And as a contractor in Scituate and working for a lot of customers, we're seeing people want to have alternate means of using town water. It's more expensive, and if they're on sewage, it costs them even more. So they want to use a cheaper supply of water. And then B, not using or wasting treated water for irrigation, to me, seemed like a logical thing that we'd like to see.
Sounds like you're on my side.
The only glitch is, I guess, is that how do you separate people that are pumping from a private well versus people using treated? And that's a discussion I've had with Jim DeBarros, trying to figure out that aspect. I've also had, because those regs will actually go to the Board of Health, I've spent some time talking to Jen Keefe about their thoughts on it. And Jen had said to me that she was going to be talking to some, I guess the Board of Health has a organization similar to our, what we call MAC, that could give her some guidance in some of those areas. And then the other piece that I sort of come to realize is that water drawn from a private well isn't calculated into the regulations that the state has, and maybe you can correct me. Our water draw is only the water draw that gets drawn by the municipal. Well, the state doesn't actually have any way of knowing how much water. Well, maybe I'm wrong, because I've learned so much about this, but essentially.
And I more or less confirmed that in a recent conversation, and then I've actually thought about it, and there is actually, it does have an impact. And so if I could just take a moment.
Sure.
There was between 2000, where are we now, 2016? 2011 and 2014, there was something in the state called the Sustainable Water Management Initiative, and nicknamed SWIMMY. And SWIMMY was dedicated to improving the Water Management Act regulations, and in fact, during last year, actually the tail end of 2014, the Water Management Act regulations were revised. Directly, when the DEP looks at water use in a community, they take a look at the metered water use of all the residences and businesses. They compare that to the metered water use. The water management company itself, in this case the Scituate Water Department, has records on what they withdraw out, and they make decisions on allocation of water based primarily on that and future need. But through the new Water Management Act regulations, they also consider, and in fact at least one of our wells are also restricted on the use based upon stream flow. If there is not sufficient flows in the streams to support a baseline of the ecology that stream is supposed to be providing, the DEP through Water Management Act can step in and restrict your water use further in town than what you're currently doing. This can have seasonal impacts. As I said, there is one well in Scituate that they cannot use during certain months of the year, because by using that well, it reduces the stream flow. And because it's all hydrologically connected, if in fact you have a neighborhood which has a number of private wells which are running very frequently for purposes other than health and safety, that's going to impact those stream flows. DEP is going to see that those stream flows have been have been impacted, and they are going to turn and put restrictions on Situate's public water supply to help protect those stream flows. So it's kind of a backdoor impact, but yes, even though DEP only manages water withdrawals over 100,000 gallons per day, that is the equivalent of take your garden hose, turn it on, and leave it on for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, a half-inch garden hose. That's 40 gallons per minute. Unless you're withdrawing 100,000 gallons per day on average at your own property, you don't fall directly under the permit, no.
Can I ask a more remedial question?
Sure.
If you are drawing from a private well,
yes,
does that draw from the same aquifer?
Yes.
It's a two-part question. Okay, that's one answered.
You're part of the South Coastal Watershed.
Okay.
So yes, that's all linked, and that's the hydrology that's reviewed when they make the permit determinations.
Now, if I'm using that to water my lawn,
yes.
So theoretically, the water goes through my lawn and back into said aquifer.
Yes.
Does it not?
Eventually, it takes about 15 years to get back down to the ground level.
Really?
Minus 15% lost to evapotranspiration.
Oh, that's our second new word of the day.
You know the word. Oh, I gotta meet you.
No, we had an earlier one today on coastal, the equalizing or...
Oh, I have it written down, I just can't say it.
Equilibrate.
Equilibrate.
That's the dispersing of
the sand?
Cobble and sand over
God,
from way back.
Who was here talking about that?
Jim O'Connell.
Who?
Jim O'Connell.
Oh, God, okay. God bless you.
Okay, so the answer is yes, it all draws
You know
from
what I
the
do
same
for a
aquifer.
living? I should say. I'm the Assistant Director of Water Policy for the Commonwealth. I work for Secretary Beaton and CZM as part of our umbrella. So, yeah.
No credentials,
I know all those, I know all those players. Yeah, that's funny.
So then,
Work with
based on
Jason all the
that,
time.
private wells are using up the water, and that...
And there was a good piece, North and South River sent out a piece a while back in their newsletter, and it was so simple. It showed a very basic drawing of a stream and some wells on either side, and as those wells drew. And Scituate, our main area that we draw water from is sort of along the Herring Brook.
Right, and that is one thing that's been they're serious, written into the permit, is the attempts to restore the fish habitat of the Herring Brook to the point that, and we've been able to achieve these goals over recent years with working closely with the North and South River Watershed Association and Jim DeBarris. We have a regimen of flows out of the reservoir to restore the herring. If the reservoir reaches a certain level, the first step is to further restrict lawn watering. If it reaches a certain further level down, there is a standing policy to restrict totally all lawn watering, all outdoor irrigation, actually. And we've been fortunate in the last couple of years that we have not had to do that. The flows out of the reservoir have been sufficient to maintain the herring habitat there, so. And the herring, in fact, have been spotted now returning to far stronger off the shores of Scituate, and for those who wonder, well, what does that mean? Well, that means the fish stocks are getting stronger.
And that's, to Penny's due with the removal of the Hunter's Pond Dam.
Yes.
And hopefully that flowage that gets back up, someday, but Bound Brook hopefully will move.
So my primary responsibility currently, we'll get to that later in a few weeks, my current responsibilities as Assistant Director of Water Policy is I'm the Program Administrator for the Dam and Seawall Repair and Removal Fund.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty much plugged into most of the dam projects that are going on, and
And we're thrilled to,
Yeah.
it seemed like it was actually driven by the fact that we didn't want to maintain a dam anymore.
Right.
But the fact that in the process, we're going to have a good ecological result is,
Yeah.
and, if
All
you
going to
have...
be positive.
Oftentimes, the removal of a structure is far less expensive than the ongoing maintenance costs.
That's what we found out, too.
Once you make a clear assessment of the downstream risk, you can oftentimes find that it's better to remove than to repair. And the state provides financial assistance for that, either through direct grants, or if you're removing a dam, it's a 0% loan. If you're rebuilding a dam, we'll charge you 2%. So,
Well, I think we're well on our way to having it out of there,
Yeah.
which would be great.
Hopefully by 17, it will be gone. We've got some more work to do this.
And then Bound Brook will flow freely.
It will flow freely, it's going
Right.
to change everything.
and then Bound Brook, Cohasset actually has an award through my office to rebuild the Bound Brook Dam where, whatever that street is, crosses the dam.
At Beach...
Beechwood, yes.
Beechwood.
Yeah.
That's what they were out there drilling today.
Yeah, so they refurbished their fish ladders a few years ago, but now they're actually rebuilding the dam and the roadway over it, so they've got a couple of $1 million to work on that project, so that should improve it as well.
So, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Please.
So in your opinion,
Yeah.
seeing, we've all, been viewing outdoor irrigation and private wells, in your opinion, could that potentially, if we don't hold back on that, could that potentially cause us a water problem as we also have development in the town and...
If it begins to have impact on the stream flows, then DEP could step in and further restrict our Water Management Act permit, which we need in order to provide water for public health and safety through the public drinking water system.
Is there anything we should do as a town to lessen the drain on it so DEP does?
So the alternative, we have already taken some steps. Private irrigation, the first step was private irrigation is limited to 1 day a week. That made a huge impact on the water supplies we have in Scituate, and it's been a very beneficial. We then later came back, and this one didn't come from me, this one actually came from the water department. Private irrigation, lawn irrigation systems for newly developed homes as of, I think it's last March or April, can no longer tap into the public water supply system. All right? So now the dilemma is, well, where are they going to get the water if they want to put in an irrigation system? The obvious answer is drop a well, which we are very concerned about because of because what I've been outlining. What we are, the recommendation to be further discussed by the community, according to our water conservation plan, is to see to it that if you do drop a well to operate an irrigation system, that you fall under the same rules that everybody else follows, of the 1 day per week. That's just fair as fair. Your neighbor is limited to 1 day a week, you would be limited to 1 day a week. But also, we presented to the Board of Selectmen initially that there are other systems. You can, with roof catchment systems, direct them to a cistern. You could create, with I think it's a 2,100 square foot roof, have plenty of water to do whatever irrigating you might want to do on your property year-round. There are other alternatives that people can look at, and all we're asking is let's put it on the table that we discuss the alternatives.
And I guess, John, not to keep beating a dead horse tonight, when I looked at that and thought, the more people that we could get to use private wells, when I think of the cliffs, when I think of areas in Scituate that aren't impacting our the aquifer that we're drawing from, and there's a lot of different, you can take the whole thing as a
Yeah.
broad area and just say it's the southern region, but really there's smaller areas within the town that draw from different cones or...
Right, he was saying one of
You're
our
right.
wells is a well of concern.
Right,
That
but,
area.
but so if you can get people to not be drawing on the municipal water, and get them to be drawing from smaller areas, I mean, I don't know, maybe they'll suck it dry, or it'll impact it in a way that's not good, if we start drying up isolated wetlands, if we start impacting in other ways, so it's pretty complicated.
I'm not going to try to get you to believe that if there's a private irrigation well out on Second Cliff, it's going to impact the stream flows in the west end, but as far as the DEP is concerned, they do look at it pretty much on a watershed basis, but, you do have to imagine, after a while, you have a bowl of water. That bowl of water can only has the capacity to serve so many straws dipped in it. And we are asking to be sure that the town really consider steps that are going to see to it that the water we have is prioritized for public health, public safety.
And I guess that would be why I'd want it not to be used for watering. And we can see in the west how that's already changed. I mean, it's not a question, it's a reality. I mean, they're out of water.
They have entire communities dried up and abandoned.
Massachusetts is fortunate. We are currently at about 66, 67 gallons per person per day of use. We have as a goal to get beneath that 65. So if we ever did have severe water problems, we're in fairly good shape when compared to other states such as California, which has an average residential per person use of 120 gallons per day. If they're going to get down to some sort of more static use, it is going to be a very difficult task for them to achieve. The 65 gallons per person per day, you're looking at the wastewater chart there. It was something that we came up with in the late 90s. Really, if you take a look at a calendar year, January to December, water use is a fairly simple bell curve.
Right.
And we just took a look at, well, what's the average use in the December, January, February, March timeframe? Well, that's really what people are needing for their use. And this other use is, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that the other uses are outside of the health and safety parameter. So what else?
I got my questions answered.
So let me just tell you where our vision is. As I think was said earlier, the idea is not to do it in private, but have it in a public. And any one of these recommendations will be further pursued through a public process. But when we first began this process, we were down at the old, Pier 44 Community Center, current library. We held a public meeting, invited anyone from the public to come talk. We've provided the plan to the Conservation Commission, the Board of Health, and we are active with the Board of Health on their private well regulations. The Planning Board, and the Planning Board has already sent us a letter, and I'm sure somebody else that's just slipping my mind at the moment. The idea is we will have one more very public, invite the entire community. We'll be posting this on our website, invite the entire community to come make comments, and then we're going to go to the Board of Selectmen and say, this is a plan which we believe you should approve, and give us the sense that these are issues that we would like to pursue deeper. So the initial request, if you will, of this group is, to sign a letter saying that you believe that the plan does provide the community a good framework of guidance to focus on for the next few years. And as I said, that really creates the work plan for the Water Resources Committee to define what issues regarding drinking water we're going to address.
Okay. Well, it's a framework. I think you've heard at least my concerns. I think as a commission, we all agree that we need to do the best we can to conserve this. To me, that's a small glitch that's in that. Pat had made some recommendations that maybe at some point something could be looked at, similar to, obviously, collections is better than drawing from a well, but I'm prepared to go forward with this if the board is.
Yep.
So maybe make a motion that we endorse.
I make a motion that we endorse, that we write a letter.
We have a letter.
Oh.
John can walk out of it here with us.
Oh, all right.
You are thorough.
Second.
Yeah.
Aye. Oh.
Yeah, we got a second.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you, John.
Well, I appreciate it, and I don't think I've saved you a night out now, Frank, right?
Well,
you don't have to come to our meeting anymore.
I might still attend and tell you what I...
You're always welcome. Any of you are always welcome. We normally meet the last Tuesday of the month, next door on the DPW.
It's the last
conference
Tuesday
table.
of the month?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right.
If things don't work out for this, you could sell cars, like... Why, you want a cop? Well, maybe you have
I'm going to hand it to you, and you're going to mail it to me? Is that, oh,
I don't know, I might.
I don't know. What are we going to do? Can you just scan it and email it to me?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
package-
you asked him?
Yeah, you can scan it. You know what scan means?
Thank you very much, John.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, thanks for all that work. I mean, it's
Thank
phenomenal.
Caroline. Seriously, Caroline did 90% of the work.
Well, she had a little good guidance.
All right, take care.
Anyway, go ahead.
Okay.
Should get his enforcement on that.
Yeah, sure.
Excuse me.
Your name is, sir?
I'm Robert Bryan from 11 Concord Street. And I'm here because I listened to the wrong people and did the wrong thing and didn't do my own due diligence about getting a permit to repair, rebuild a little wall. It's about this high. It's not a seawall, it's a river wall.
He is on the South River. There was an old wall that was there that was damaged heavily last winter, and from there, he's describing it right. I've been out there with Pat.
What's the number?
11 Concord Street.
It's on the,
okay.
it's on the river.
Riverside, on the
Yeah,
riverside.
yeah.
And he set about making repairs to the wall and also raising the level without coming to us, and that's how Pat drew attention to it. I'm sure Pat will speak more to it, but I've been there, I'm familiar with it, that's why.
Okay.
So,
Actually, the intended level is supposed to be the same as, okay, no, that side one would
Right,
be
right.
raised, you're right. Okay, I'm sorry, but, okay.
Have either one of you seen?
Yes. He was the gentleman that he chose to hire steered him in the wrong direction.
Okay. So do you need to, what do you need for filing? For Concord Street?
Yeah, this, it was poured concrete and there were no forms and it was up against the salt marsh, and I think the choices would either be take it out or file and see if it would be something that could be allowed. I think though there was an existing wall next to that, and maybe that could be raised, but where this is, it's in a resource area and it's...
So either, something's got to be filed, right?
Yeah, I'll just take it out,
Is it going to do damage to pull it out now?
I would think so.
Yeah, you probably have to file before you even took it out.
So I think,
I mean, have you talked to anybody, Bob, since?
No, I haven't done a thing, no, no.
Did you talk to the contractor, Pat?
No, I know this contractor is...
I've got more, I've got more information on him if you want it.
Isn't he in another state now?
well...
It's strange, he's in New Hampshire for, I don't know why, but...
Well, that's almost irrelevant. I think if you think that he needs to file, and if he's going to need some help in filing, either contacting somebody that's familiar with that type of work, an engineer or surveyor, or, I'm not familiar with it all, so I don't know what it needs.
This would be filed to do what?
Well, to do any work in that area, you'd have
I know
to
that.
file
Yeah.
something. So
Yeah.
even if it's to remove it, I mean, I don't know if you're planning on trying to build up your existing wall.
I wish they never poured that cement. I didn't realize, but there was a wall, there's actually two walls. There's one that goes parallel to the river, and then there's one that comes towards my house. And the purpose of the wall is to keep the water off of Concord Street so that we can actually get into our houses and, all kinds of, reasons for that. It's been there for as long as, I've owned the house for 30 years. It looks to me like it's probably 1950s. My thought was to get back to the same situation that was there previously. And I didn't realize, but along the perpendicular wall, there was actually a wall there. And we could have just filed to just build up on that, and that would have been the same height as the old wall that fell over. So I want to do whatever you want me to do, and...
Is there more than one property involved with this, Pat, or is it just...
It might all be on yours, is it?
It's mostly on mine, but it's, you go down Concord Street, there's a river. This wall is right here. I'm over here. The Campbells. The Campbells are on the left. So there's my house, the 30-foot street, and the Campbells. So it's actually two private properties and the street.
Okay. Well, I think you're going to have to file an NOI or an RDA for this.
Right, I mean, if your intent is to try to get this approved, which
Well,
I
even
don't think it would.
even to remove it.
Right, but you'd be writing different things depending on, right, so.
Yeah, when we talk about removing, we're talking about, they poured some cement down in the ground for a footing. So that's actually, it's not up here or anything like
The
that.
digging up of it could actually do more
Well, that's what
damage than actually putting a form on top of the footing. Yeah.
So fine. I guess the question, I just want to know whether you're going to recommend to them an NOI or an RDA.
Yeah, it'd probably be a NOI either way.
Okay. So a notice of intent is a filing that you make with our commission.
Okay.
And abbreviation is NOI.
Got it, yeah.
And it can be sort of complicated, and you may choose, you can try to fill one in yourself. I've done a lot with the customers, and I've never done one by myself.
Okay.
Getting an engineer or surveyor or somebody, I'm just not familiar with the site, so I can't say, maybe you can give them some
Right,
better.
I mean, one of the things, if you're going to be filing a notice of intent, you're assuming that the state may be willing to approve something like this. I would say they would not be. So it would be more of a removal, or, I don't know.
Well, I think that's why they need to get somebody in to take a look at it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there's rebar, it's poured, and there's rebar sitting there, but it's in a location that it never would have been allowed originally, so. But 5 feet away, there's a collapse wall that probably could have been built up with.
There's been walls there, and these guys poured footings to, rather than put it on top of what was there, to do a new one. That was a mistake. We never should have done that.
All right, so I think we've got to hear from, and I mean, I don't even know what this looks like. I'm just trying to visualize it. We're talking abstract. So,
I think a few people have seen it.
so does he need to get an engineer to do some sort of, if it's coming out, we need to know how it's coming out and be safe. If it's staying, it needs to be permitted.
Right. Maybe we just need to sit down and talk about those two options, and then it would be a contractor more than an engineer. I mean...
Yeah, but he's still got a file.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
With some resource areas and some information.
But it wouldn't have to be an engineered plan. It could
All right. Okay.
All right,
So you're going to talk about whether I should take it out or leave it in?
Do we have your
This is the base.
email address, Bob?
Sure. I'll write it down.
Okay, that'd be good. And then I
Okay.
can get in touch with you. We can start that.
We do appreciate you coming in.
Okay, thank you for listening at this late hour. How you stay awake is beyond me.
Coffee.
Beyond me.
Copious amounts of coffee.
Yeah. Okay, so you get back to me?
Yeah.
It's the attention deficit that sometimes
Pays off for me.
wanes. All right, since Mr. Galvin and Mr. Offler and Mr. Morse are here, why don't you guys,
You didn't get a filing ready and why, right?
He's got to talk some more about what?
I didn't give you instruction to take.
Where are we going? Just gotta find out, huh? Yeah.
Enforcement.
Okay. Yeah, we went.
fire away.
Okay. I think when we were here a couple of months ago, our plan was to have Greg go out to the site with Pat, give you people an opportunity to go back out to the site if you needed it, but to try to determine the extent of where the fill was through some hand augering and/or observation holes to kind of try to determine what was where. And I know that's happened, and I'll probably have Pat address that, but I wanted just to address a kind of a theoretical problem that I have, because when our ORAD that expires at the end of this month treats that wetland resource area as an isolated vegetated wetland. And I don't have firsthand knowledge, but the commission members may know that apparently there was a recent project that I think Greg was involved in over here. And because this was located with 100 feet of the resource area here, and that was called an isolated vegetated wetland there, in that filing. They had to file a notice of intent, I guess. But it was treated as an isolated there. I know it was treated as an isolated vegetated wetland for the heirs and for the two properties. And it sounds to me like maybe Pat is thinking that maybe it needs to be treated as bordering because of the pipe issue in the street for Mr. Hoffler. It doesn't seem logical to me on a theoretical basis that it could be isolated for them all and then bordering for Christian. And that's kind of separate and distinct from the issue of whether the fill has to come out. Because regardless whether it's isolated or bordering, it's still a fill issue. So, but I'm somewhat bothered by that. I don't know quite how to solve that issue. So, Greg, do you want to summarize what you found out there?
Sure. We did a site walk with a couple of us, probably 2 months ago. I think Penny, you were there.
Yes.
Lisa, you were there. Pat and I have walked the site. You had asked me to flag the original location of this wetland line on the ANRAD plan. We flagged that out in the field. It is evident that from the middle of the lot, essentially to the right, is where the fill was placed. It ranges from 0 to probably 2 feet thick at its most. The area where the fill has been placed it's revegetated at this point. The fill was put back in, circa 2006, I think it was. So it's had almost 10 years now to vegetate. Looking at it as an isolated wetland, it really doesn't serve as any real drainage purpose. It doesn't hold water as a basin. It really serves more as a wildlife habitat area. To go in and remove the fill is certainly doable. You'd be removing that vegetation, which is growing back at this point. I don't know if that's going to better the habitat value in any way, shape, or form. I was asked by this board and by Pat as well to look at that wetland on whether or not it should be classified as a bordering vegetated wetland. Essentially what I found is the same thing that was found when this ANRAD plan was approved. There's a pipe that goes underneath Peggotty Beach Road. There's a stone culvert on Mr. Hoffler's side of the road. It drains across the street onto a private property into a salt marsh. That pipe typically would be a hydraulic connection, classifying this as bordering vegetated wetland. But that pipe, as they found back in 2006 with this ANRAD plan, and what we found when we tried to snake a line through it, that pipe appears to have been severed. It's our assumption it was severed when the sewer line went in down Peggotty Beach Road, so there's physically no hydraulic connection there anymore. Looking at doing a wetland replication on this site, if you were to go in, remove the fill, there's been an awful lot of alteration, not just on Mr. Hoffler's lot, but you have the development of 2 houses behind this, you have, 3 houses behind this, you have the alteration out in the street, you have the alteration of the drain. I don't think you're ever going to get this wetland to function the same way that it did when this ANRAD was approved. Not simply because of the fill that was placed there, but you've had alterations without NOI filings on 2 abutting properties that have added significant drainage to this site. You've severed off the hydraulic connection underneath the road. I think what Mr. Hoffler's leaning toward is trying to propose an off-site mitigation, whether it's restricting or donating other parcels of land that he has control over, or doing Phragmites removal work. I think what our purpose here is to ask for an extension on this IVW line, to keep it classified as an IVW. It's our intent to file a notice of intent for a project here in short order next week. And as part of that, to propose the replication work associated with this, essentially by proposing off-site mitigation.
I don't think I can add much other than a couple of personal points that I want the board to know. I need your cooperation as much as possible. I have unfortunate news that at Christmas I had a brain aneurysm. I got rushed to Mass General in South Shore, and I have an inoperable brain tumor, which gives me, on planet Earth, maybe 6 months to a year, God willing. They can't operate on it. I've got a big chunk out of my left side of my head. So I'm asking everybody to try to fast track. I'm not asking for anything over and above normal. I got the property back in '73, paid taxes on it. Grew up next door at 21 Peggotty, right across from the parking lot there. And I need to get my affairs in order. It's tough for me to say. I don't want any pity or anything like that, because that's not color of my jib. So my proposal through Bob and Greg would be to try to fast track this. At the end of the day, honestly, it was never my intent to fill in anything. You probably have to know that I've raised more money on planet Earth than most people for habitat, both here and in Florida. Proud of what I've done. All I want to do is try to get a couple of things buttoned up. I get things out in First Cliff that I've already arranged to do, and I have a beautiful piece of property with a stream on it in Gridley Bryant that I'd never want to build on anyway, because it's perfect. This is Gridley Bryant. You guys can do what you want with it. Make it into a park, make it into a habitat. The second part of that property, because it's like 2 lots, the second part of the property could be put into a Conservation Commission to control, build upon, whatever you want to do. If you need the money for that, fine. My intention is to try to put a single family in there and sell it, and then use that money going forward with other things that I need to do. So, sucks to say what I have to say, but it's true. So, I'm pulling out as many, and I hope, God willing, that, I'm sitting here for a year or 2, but doctors at Mass General, I'm going for a second opinion of Dana-Farber tomorrow or the next day.
I was certainly sorry to hear about those issues, Mr. Hoffler.
Yeah, and again, I'm not saying that to get any sympathy in the board, because I've never done that.
Sure.
It's not me. I just want you to know that I don't have time to massage this any longer. I really want to get certain things. You know, when I look back at it, I said this to a couple of good friends of mine, that you never have that opportunity, because I have so many people that have died from a heart attack or crash or drowned or whatever else over
Sure.
lifetime. So for me to be able to sit here and try to work for the last week with, very close people that know me, whether it's in the court systems or anything else, they've all come to my aid. So I don't want to make this political or sympathetical or anything like that. I just would really like to do this because I can control and have the money and the ability to help you guys out. I just want to get my affairs in order.
Sure. Well, and certainly to hear this and try to figure out what could be done is something that I think everybody here is a human being, so that they have some sympathy. Unfortunately, it's a fairly complicated, or it's become a more complicated issue. The fact that other people developed above it without recognizing that maybe the proper identification of that piece of property, whether it's a isolated wetlands or it is a BVW, I'm really not quite sure. I mean, originally you were told you could fill it. You came to the commission, asked the agent, they were told you there's no wetlands there, knock yourself out. We have that on record.
Over a many-month period, by the way. It wasn't just in the middle of the night.
No, and so, nobody's saying that you did this maliciously. You asked permission and you got it. Then subsequently, which can happen with some of these pieces, when they get examined, or there was a hearing here tonight, Aquina, off of Man Hill Road, where the people assumed that they had no wetlands, and then lo and behold, in the back, when they go bushwhacking, they find a small isolated wetlands, and then had to deal with moving their property around and a whole bunch of issues. So, and then we have the issue of whether it goes beyond being an isolated wetlands as to whether there's the potential that it has been connected or wasn't, which then changes the whole resource area substantially. And, I know that the last thing you want to hear is a whole bunch more stuff. Pat and I were in the hallway today talking with yesterday with the DPW about, figuring out this pipe, and they're like, well, you can't figure that pipe out this time of year because you can't access the road. They won't allow you to dig up the road this time of year. I mean, I think most of us can draw an assumption if there's a pipe on one side of the road and there's a pipe on the other side of the road and they come fairly close together, the width of an excavator bucket when they were laying the sewer line could have changed that. So it doesn't change the fact that we still have a bunch of issues with this property.
Can I ask a question?
Sorry. Yeah, just give me...
No, go ahead, yep.
So we accepted that ANRAD, the commission accepted that ANRAD. Is that...
There's an ORAD issued, and it's at the end of the...
And it was said that it's an isolated wetlands.
And when they come back for an extension of that, we realized there may be some incomplete information. There was a lot of talk about it being bordering, but it got, determined to be by the commission and isolated. And abutters and neighbors were saying, there's pipes on the other side. And so I think we were looking to close the loop, get full information. And, I think we offered them an opportunity to snake the thing. And we had our DPW guys try to snake in, and it hit something. And DPW feels like it is connected to the pipe that goes to the marsh. So I think, to call something isolated, when we know it could be bordering, there's a little more work. I think that's where we are. I mean, we understand that there'll be a filing and there may be some off-site mitigation proposed in the future, but I think we're just trying to get a handle on whether this is truly isolated or whether it's bordering.
So, whether it's bordering or isolated, we still have a 50 and 100-foot buffer zone.
Well, if it's isolated, whoever owns the property doesn't have to follow all the local bylaws. It opens the lot up to a different type of development, and actually a complete fill of the wetland.
Right.
Wanted to pursue that.
But that would be an appeal through the state and all that stuff, which,
Well, that would be, if it's isolated, there wouldn't have to be a filing with the state. It would be, filing with...
if the filing came to us and there was an isolated wetlands there, and we denied the project,
It would be to court.
it would go to court,
It would go to court, yeah.
which is a lengthy process as well.
Right, right. And I don't think we have any favor which way it goes.
Right.
We're just trying to figure out what the information
What's the correct, what is,
Right. We owe it to the community to find out, gee, if this is bordering, it changes the rules and it impacts the development of that lot.
but, and to their point, it being a bordering wetland with the work that went on above that property, being on the cliff and with that glacial till, I mean, I know that there was material sliding down that hill towards this area. Certainly went well within the 50.
I know that because I owned all of it.
I know that. I mean,
All that property.
Yeah.
Killed me to see them cut that big tree down. Horrible.
Is the only thing that would make it a BVW is the hydraulic connection? And
is there any
regardless of the state of that hydraulic connection?
I guess, is there a length of time, or?
That's a good question.
Whether it's working or not.
The answer, because it may have been clogged off when they put the water line in, and is there a statute of limitation? But it seems like when it went through the NRAD, at that point, there hadn't been water work done, from what I could tell. So it wasn't blocked at that time.
But if the connection is severed, does that still
You're saying
constitute
at the
bordering?
time, you thinking that just got broken when they did the sewer project on the cliff is 4 years old now?
4 or 5.
Yeah, Kevin Cafferty was thinking maybe something happened then. The abutter walked us to the outfall of a pipe, and it does look like it lines up with the drainage off of this lot across the street. But nobody knows. I mean, they talked about they could dig it up and...
Do we assume that it would no longer function in that capacity if there was a house built there? I mean, could it still do what it's supposed to do?
I mean, it's collecting as an isolated wetland now, I guess, so it would be an isolated wetland, yeah.
No, I mean,
It's drainage.
if the hydraulic connection was restored, theoretically, could, theoretically, a house still go on that piece and still have that hydraulic connection working?
Yeah, we talked about that. Greg and I were talking about that. If it's restored and the pipe flows, does that drain the wetland that's in there now and change it? Does it impact the... So there were a lot of different questions that come up on this, but...
And is there a time limit, if we find it is severed, does that then take away the definition of
Well, severed or
bordering?
blocked, it doesn't work either way.
And I don't know if there's anything in the law about that. I don't know if it's
Well, the reality is probably when Peggotty Beach Road was last rebuilt, it blocked off something years ago. I mean,
Yeah.
that's probably the accurate history of it that makes the most...
But that might have been before the Wetlands Protection Act, who knows? But more than likely, you're right, that was elevated, that was a low area.
Right, and they
When
built up
Peggotty
the
Beach
road and it severed it.
started as a dirt road, or...
It may have been possible that water was flowing over the road, so they put a pipe under the road, which is what they...
More than likely.
Many towns did.
Right. But so then, to that argument, Bob, before Peggotty Beach was there, that wetland truly just went all up into that area.
Probably.
Yeah.
When does this ANRAD or ORAD expire?
End of this month.
End of the month.
It expired if we gave them an extension to January 27th, trying
Do we have another meeting before that?
We have one that night.
On that day.
Is there any chance that, I mean, it's almost 10 o'clock at night, and you guys, I know you've waited out here for a long time to do this. I'm just wondering if we can't take, over the next couple of weeks, an opportunity to discuss anything else that's possible, or not, just so we can give them some good direction, whether we want to extend that for another month or two, or, I know that you don't want to hear that this is going to drag on, but I don't think we're prepared tonight to say...
Have we talked to Toomey about it at all?
No, we haven't talked to Jim.
no need to.
If, a month and a half ago, Kevin could have dug up the street, and maybe at that point, it would have been worth doing it.
Can I just say something quickly
Sure.
that seems logical? When I originally looked at this thing, my whole thought process when I talked to the agent and I was talking to doing the house lot, literally like 20 feet away, there is a drain that comes out of 21 Peggotty and goes directly across the street to, there's now this big pump house there, or whatever it is.
All right.
So that whole Peggotty Beach, 21 Peggotty, that's the house right there, the small cape, that the elderly couple has lived there forever, Jack Lyons and Mary. And they've been there, I think, they've been in their same rent for 30 years, the best deal of the state, I think. But anyway, the bottom line is that at the end of the day, if it's a connection that's across the road, my initial proposal was if there's all of this drainage that's coming down from the hill anyway, it's got to go somewhere. And there are street drains already in there, and this is one of the street drains, so whether or not it's directed or not, and I just don't understand why, I mean, that's the fix. However, at the same time, for the mitigation or whatever that, that I know that we're all responsible to do, I'm willing to take most of the lot and do that in perpetuity to make it wetland as much as you want and give you the money to do it. I'm the last one to fill in wetlands. I mean, anybody knows that. So, I mean, I don't think we have to overthink it. If you put in an order condition that something has to be replicated or something has to be a small pond or whatever else you want, then let's just do it. I mean, wouldn't that be better? Certainly doesn't make any sense to take an existing system that's been in place for 10 years and rip it out and just replant it for no reason.
Right.
I'd rather give you the 10 grand that I'm going to spend on that and have you take the phragmites out of the driftway. That's more common sense and solves a lot more environmental things that we're supposed to be doing.
Build a conventional house instead of a 40B?
What's that?
And not build a 40B?
I don't want to do any of that, so are you kidding me? People be visiting my grave for another reason. That doesn't end on a good note. I just don't want to overthink this, guys, and I think it's a pretty simple solution. You can call it whatever you want. You want the 3/4 of the lot or whatever to be in perpetuity forever. That's a real plus. If someone else gets their hands on it, it could be in a different direction, which I really don't want to see.
Sure.
It's just that, again, it's not me. I want to try to take advantage of it while I have.
So could we meet the mediation ratio?
We're going to be meeting Toomey on something else. Would you like me to add this to the list and we could sit down with him?
Yeah, because this is, I understand what you're saying, and a lot of it, makes sense in abstract, in a vacuum, but the fact is that if it is declared a BVW, then we've got problems.
Yeah, and there's no guarantees, too, that, agreements made, I'll hold it as, whatever, it'll be preserved forever. If it gets sold, the next person may come along and say,
Well, you have restrictions and
No,
stuff,
there's
but...
deeded restrictions you do. When I'm the first one, Bob brought the thriller from Manila on that stuff.
We can restrict it anyway.
Exactly. We could put all that into the order.
I guess, again, at 10 o'clock at night, I'm not prepared to make a deal, and I don't think we can anyways, to be quite honest with you. But I think we can certainly take what you've offered tonight, take a look at that, discuss it, and I'm not saying we will or will not, I'm just saying we can take what you've proposed.
You want us to come back on the 27th?
And I think that's what you're going to have to do.
Okay.
And in the meantime, you should keep some correspondence with Pat, and we can talk about it. Pat can get some questions answered. Might have some questions from Greg. I mean, I'm just looking at lot size and trying to figure out how you'd get another lot out of here and still achieve all the things that you're saying you can do, which looks a little tough, but
I think that we can,
maybe.
I think we figure that out, honestly.
Well, let's, again, not at 10 o'clock at night. You guys might be good at it.
I'm saying,
but
I think I could do that, but there's a lot more that can go to the conservation.
Okay. All right.
When you talk to Attorney Toomey, it probably makes sense to ask him what he thinks, at least in his opinion, the impact of having other lots with a declared.
Yeah, no,
Is this an inconsistency?
I get it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry about your news,
Hey,
sir.
no, I'm kidding. Hopefully I'll beat it.
It's almost 10 o'clock. We got a little bit of ground to cover.
You can move pretty quick through some of these.
Yep.
Quick, very quick.
Yeah, I'm ordering dinner right now. I'm ordering dinner before
For all
the
of
kitchen
us?
closes. Yeah, no.
I'll take swordfish. No.
140 River Street, which is the wall in the river.
Yeah.
I spoke to the property owner today. He's going to be on the agenda for the 27th, and I've asked him to get anything he can from either DEP Chapter 91 or the Army Corps of Engineers. He doesn't know what information the father has in the file, the late father has in the file, so we're going to...
They don't have anything.
They don't have anything.
Okay.
They don't have anything. I'll save the time on that, yeah.
But he'll be in here, so we can...
Yeah.
We can
Whatever.
And then he'll have the same choice, file or take it out. So, Mary's Lane...
Mary Lane.
It was going to be surveyed onto the plan. It's been flagged in the field. It was going to be surveyed onto the plan because they're in a dispute with the neighbor, and now they may not be surveying it on the plan. They may want us to just talk about a planting plan for the buffer. So I said we consider that. And
Just plant what they took down.
24 Webster is the wall around the house.
Is it, the town, are they going to eventually come to us with that Lawson Road thing?
They're on the agenda. We sent the letter, the violation letter. They said, well, it's the subcontractor, it's the contractor. We said, well, no, it's your project.
Yes.
So they're coming the next meeting.
Okay.
He may send the contract, but that's going to be more than just enforcement. That's going to have to be a replanting plan. It's a good-sized area wetland there.
Well, they ruined it.
Okay, Dodge Road is actually the same as 140 Hammerock Beach Road. You enter from Dodge.
Right.
But
That's the house on the right instead of the one we...
Yeah, she
did
was
tonight.
here tonight early. She came at 6:15, and she said, what would you like us to do? I said, well, you know, it's been paved, it hasn't been permitted. She goes, well, what do I need to file? The spaces in between, she thinks it may be pervious, and they would have to show that it is, and they would have to file an after the fact.
What about the wall?
Yeah, I was out there.
Or the fence, I mean, the white fence.
Okay, the fence, yeah.
Yeah.
It's on the inland side.
That's
of the
correct.
property, right, that'll wash down the street.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't talk about that with her. Okay. Forgot about that.
Go back to Webster Street, 24 Webster.
24 Webster. Okay, he, I think, should have the same choice.
The Great Wall.
File or take it down. And he lives far away. I didn't get in touch with him since the last meeting, but,
In reality, though, just a quick question, aren't we just wasting a lot of everybody's time? Like, with something like that, that's not gonna be allowed to just say file and go through this whole...
well, no, I'll tell him it should come down, he has the right to file, and then we would deny it, but it would be better
Okay,
to...
yeah, right.
It's the one we had earlier. I mean, it should come out, but...
Yeah, but even to remove it, they need to file.
Right. Whereas in this case, no, this case he would too.
Sure he would.
He has to remove this.
No, but he'd
But he
have
has to file anyway.
remove it. Yeah, okay. let's see, Concord Street, that's it. 135 Old Oak and Bucket, they put the,
Did they, I didn't get by there today.
Carol spoke with them, they banged it into a tree, I guess, so,
They banged into a tree?
yeah,
The sign?
yeah.
Their head,
He said, I put the...
oh, it's in a tree. Oh, yeah.
All right, I'll stop by there. Jesus.
Forget about the sign, what about the
Silk fence.
fence?
Supposedly put that up today.
Carol's gonna, you're gonna print me some cease and desists, okay?
What, the same one I gave?
On
Yeah.
red, on red paper.
Yeah.
We all need them.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
We all need them.
But the guy got the call, and he did call right away, said he'd do it.
Or an electronic copy.
So, but he banged it into the tree.
All right.
So,
Banged it into the tree.
Don Gillespie has
into a
been told
tree.
by Greg that he's on our buffer, so we need to bring him in at the next meeting. And he has to do a buffer planting.
All right.
The foundation's in the
Gillespie.
right place, it appears.
Okay.
Curtis, Branch Street.
All right, I'm just ready, well, there's been enough of these lately, I'm just ready to start saying, you know what? You can just stop work, and when you get it sorted out, you can go back to work.
Yes.
Yes.
It's just been too many.
That's the only way
With
that
that one
it's gonna
especially,
stop.
I think.
Yep.
That one, Amari.
All of them.
And the other thing, I did ask Carol to get me
Don't
a
have-
couple of folders,
Yeah.
because I'm looking at these on Old Oak and Bucket, and I'm not sure everybody's in compliance.
I got them all ready for you.
All right, I'll take a look tomorrow.
The web one, I'm not sure
Web's
what the
fine.
drive is. I'm not sure what the drive is supposed to be.
He's got all his stuff there. I mean, they did come back in and ask us for a change on the driveway.
Okay,
They were in front of us with their engineer requesting a change.
okay.
And I believe their silt fence, all that stuff is intact.
Okay.
But there's 3 more houses. It's Amari, then there's one that's been going up for a while, and then
Right, yeah.
Mr. Moody was
Yeah.
just doing his. And I really didn't take a look, but I want to make sure there's
Agent Orange.
Bless you.
silt
blew it up.
fences in back of all.
I'll go out there tomorrow.
I was really surprised at how many trees came down too,
Where?
in that, in the bogs there. I
Well,
was really surprised.
I mean, it was on the, I stopped when they were cutting the trees, and
Septic, yeah.
and they had the plan and stuff. I'd be more concerned that they don't have the silt fences up.
The silt fence is the problem.
But you're right, Bill, they shouldn't be cutting anything they're not supposed to, but
Right.
when I looked at the plan, they
It
were
seemed
cutting
like-
within the
yeah,
area
okay.
and whatnot.
Okay.
Okay, 31 Candlewood, Mr. Kamen, we have I met with the GPS guy today, and we have a plan from Ralph Cole, and Ralph?
This should be rectified by the next meeting.
Okay, right.
Ralph,
I
it's a 20-45-foot buffer.
We're gonna, if this guy's gonna keep us, we're gonna be eating cold dinners for the rest of our life if
My
this.
son's gonna be on conservation.
Maybe my grandson.
You guys had taken care of this 10 years ago, we wouldn't be where we
I'll
are.
get free pears for Christmas.
All right,
And then 12 Rebecca got the letter, and she called us back. This is a raised yard in the back of Rebecca, brought in Phil, may have raised the wall without a permit.
Oh, come
After
on.
the fact filing.
What about Wheeler? Did they put their
That's
silt
next
fence
Tuesday,
up
believe it or not, I can't
off
be
the
there.
Stone
That's
Ave?
actually on stone, yes. He put up his silt sock.
It's not
I got it.
stone, it's Wheeler.
No, there's
It's
two
off-
in a row. Wheeler.
It's gonna be slow
You're right,
grinding.
it's not stone, it's Wheeler. Wheeler has put up the silt sock.
And they took the stuff out of the wetlands.
Stuff out, and they're not gonna de-water. I haven't seen the stuff out. I've seen the silt fence, and they're not gonna
I'll
de-water.
go by there tomorrow.
The blue hose should be gone.
all right.
That'd be nice.
Idiots, I'm so tired.
Okay, with all those? So just a couple of quick updates, and Carol will send this to you, but on February 6th, the rec department's gonna have a winter festival at the Widows Walk, and they're gonna have demonstrations for ice fishing, but also snowshoe and cross-country. They want some input on, like, where people can do that in Scituate. So I'm gonna see if we can put together a little card table or something with some trail maps,
What's the
things
date,
like
Frank?
that.
February 6th.
February 6th, from 11:30 to 3:30.
Do you want to set up like staggered times?
Yeah, maybe we'll
Yeah, all
shoot
right.
something out and see who can do what, and we'll have some maps here that we can point to people where things are, and then maybe some trail maps of the Bates
Do we
Lane.
have trail maps of all of our trails?
No.
Not all of them, but we
Okay.
can give them
Okay.
enough so they can get lost.
That's more for my own information.
All right? But that'd be a nice thing to support.
Yeah.
Both Richard and I are on coastal advisory, and they're just barely getting their feet wet, so. Right. I think that's about the best we can say.
Maybe I should show up and shake things up.
You didn't do Ingrid Lane.
Just kidding.
Ingrid.
Ingrid Lane, he's pulling out everything out of the 200.
Yeah.
And the new person will be able to get a building permit, but there's some issues around stormwater from planning board and the quality of the fill that is out there, so.
Quality is horrific.
Right, so that's gonna be looked into, I believe.
Is planning gonna take care of the quality of the fill? Because it really is out of our jurisdiction, the
It
fill.
may not be them doing that, but it could be a Board of Health issue.
All right, because we didn't discuss the quality the day we were out there. with-
All we wanted is out of our...
No, I understand that, that's why I'm just asking, but it is just a
Right,
disgrace.
this is moving up, it's gonna be with the town administrator.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Echo Check is doing a cleanup up on Chief Justice Cushing, the spill from the fire, and they asked for an emergency cert.
Yeah, I saw
They
that.
tested it, and there's still some remnants, so they want to be able to clean it up. And
Okay.
Of course, we'll do it. So.
I saw that email.
I've just gotten some questions from folks that want to work on trails. It's the winter time, it's a good time to do it.
It's a great time.
I think I'm going to see if I can pair up a fellow that's been doing a lot of the Bates Lane Trail, Mr. Matthews, with the guy by the name of Ernie Foster, who's willing to do more of it. And maybe we'll start with doing some preliminary things that they can put together, and then come to the commission. And then if we agree, then they can start to move forward with some of those. But they're both anxious to do more. I also got some feedback, one of the trails at Ellis got removed as part of the safety building, and I chatted with Lori Bates at the safety building, and they're gonna look at putting in some of that siltation like we talked about. And then, I think it's the landscape architect is the one that's responsible for that replacement of that trail.
Yeah, to the right of the existing.
Yeah, it sort of runs
Yeah.
behind the berm
Yeah.
that's going to be built. But at some point when it seems safe, perhaps we'll get some people to do some flagging and work with them.
Oh, yeah,
We
yeah.
can have some correspondence about that.
Yeah, she's pretty easy to work with.
Yeah. So hopefully get some of that back in order. But as people aren't using Ellis, we're hopeful that they'll start to use, the Bates Lane trails and become familiar with those. So that could be good.
Those are great trails, too.
Finally got Pat to the far end of,
Yeah, but you haven't even seen half of it.
I know.
we'll get him out there someday.
There's
Yeah,
so
we
much
will.
free time,
No, I understand. I understand.
Are we, so that kind of went through the list. Do you have any orders to approve tonight?
Minutes.
Minutes?
4th and the 18th.
The minutes, yes, I make a motion, we accept the minutes of November 4th as written and November 18th as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Beach Committee, Bill, do you have anything on that?
Just that we are working with the town. I talked to Kim Stewart today about dogs. They're looking at, we're meeting with Kevin Cafferty, and I'll keep you informed.
Somebody patents a big diaper for dogs, and they'll make
Yeah.
a fortune.
Who wants to change a dog's diaper?
Kim-
Just pick up that.
Kim has some people that are working on it, so
Oh.
we're gonna.
Because then they'll just throw it in the woods, so.
That's true, too, yeah, they're disgusting.
Quiet.
Do we have any
I don't
orders
get it.
tonight?
I don't get it. No.
All right.
Yeah, we did them.
The other meeting.
Yeah. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.